broadcast over Lunenburg Public Access. And this is the October 29th meeting of the Sewer Commission. Announcements, I have a couple here. We did have a change to our irrigation meter policy, and this is a reminder that the new policy went into effect on 8/1/19, and everyone must comply with the changes by July 2020 to remain in the irrigation meter program for credits. The annual fee of $50 will be reflected on upcoming sewer invoices. And Barb, that will be credited, is that what you're saying?
No, it's a charge.
It's a charge, okay,
And it's
that's
just the
right.
irrigation meter customers.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. We're having a special town meeting in town on November 12th, and the commission has 3 articles on the warrant. 2 pertain to budget and stabilization funds, and 1 is for a proposed expansion of the sewer service area. Okay, before we get to our appointments, is there any public comment from the board? No? Okay. Our first appointment is Elizabeth Street. Letters were sent on October 21st to residents of number 33 and 34, inviting them to tonight's meeting. 34 Elizabeth Street responded, saying that they had replaced all of their pipes, but anyone is welcome to come down and investigate. Okay, so there's an invitation to investigate, but if they have recently, Barb, replaced all their pipes?
No, at the original installation.
So they do not have clay pipes? They have PVC?
He said green 4-inch PVC all the way from the house to the street.
6-inch, actually.
6-inch PVC all the way? Wonderful. There was no response from 33 Elizabeth. Jack, you got any input on a dye test, or is it even required anymore if we know that one group already replaced all their pipes?
What's the question?
We discussed at our last meeting about having a dye test to determine whether 33 or 34 was the unit that was contributing the I&I to the system. Because
Right.
we know that I&I has been identified as coming from one of those 2 units.
Right.
Now, so we were thinking of a dye test to determine which unit was doing that. However, with this new information that 34 Elizabeth Street already replaced all their pipes, that might lead us to a different conclusion.
Well, in terms of the dye test, I don't think it would be appropriate in this case, because if we put dye in the sewer line, you obviously put it in something, a sink, a toilet, a bathtub, and it'll flow through the system. That's going to go with the flow of the sewerage through the pipe. That is not necessarily going to give you an indication that there's infiltration. You would have to dye, I mean, you wouldn't do it, but the infiltration would come from the ground in and not through the system itself. So I think in this particular case, the dye is not the way to go.
Okay?
I'd like to go over there and know with many of those, because the lots are so small, septics were in the back or joined septics, and necessitated a bend. In some cases, people were allowed to put a sweep, a sealed pipe. Other cases, they put an actual manhole if there was a driveway for structural purposes, and at times they put a well tile, which is just a smaller concrete structure. It might behoove us to find that, open it up, and see what's going on in there first, with permission of the owner, of course.
Well, we now have permission from 34. So, Dave,
Do we know how long that was repaired, when it was done?
when they put the system in, Barb?
It would have been early 2000 or
2000.
2002 maybe.
Okay.
PVC pipe should still be okay for that length
No,
of time.
it's perfect.
His
I agree.
PVC pipes, once I discovered who the resident was, he's quite a colorful character. And I remember clearly that being done on his, so I can vouch for him. It's obvious if you've got a problem there, it's one or the other. It's clearly, if there is a problem, it's the other.
The other.
I'm not sure about the process here. I thought we were in public comment.
We were.
We were.
No one made any public
wanna-
comment.
Okay, and so I thought the announcements is where we ran amok, so, all right, so we're in this first agenda item?
Elizabeth Street, yeah.
Great. So we still don't know which one of the two. Hopefully, we have good reason to believe now it wouldn't be the one with the PVC, so that's great. So I guess the question is it the other one, Jack, that you're saying that there's a bend or something that you'd like to
Most
investigate?
all of them had
Most
bends
all of them had bends.
because the septic system and being close to the front, being close to the road, septics were typically, or cesspools actually, were in the back.
Right,
Tanks
okay.
were in the back.
Yeah, just on the thought, and I don't think you were here when we talked about the dye thing, Jack. The thought was that when we didn't know which one it was, and I'm not sure we still know which one it was, just because they have PVC doesn't mean there isn't a problem necessarily. So I don't know we can point a finger at one or the other, but the thought on the dye test was to put the dye in one, doesn't matter, one of them. And I thought we had a camera in town, and to, with the camera, look at that lateral. And if we, so that we could see if the dye comes out the lateral, and that would confirm which house this lateral is connected to. Because my understanding is the whole problem is, we know which lateral it is, but we don't know which house it's connected to. Is that the right statement?
That question hasn't been brought up to me. Each home, as the new sewer was installed, had its own lateral. So, it's not, I can't tell you where the infiltration's coming from. It would seem that it's more likely to come from the one that's not entirely PVC. But again, to put the dye in wouldn't necessarily give us the infiltration. It would come out, you would see it in the manhole, the next manhole in the flow down gradient. And maybe you could put it in, I don't know, I guess you could put it in and convince the people not to use anything that enters the sewer. But it may likely to flow down. I don't think it's foolproof.
Yeah, but I guess the thing that takes me aback, which maybe it's good news, is what's been hanging us up is we were under the impression that because we certainly know Weston Sampson told us exactly which lateral it is. They told us in their report exactly which lateral it is, but what we've been operating under the belief that we could not 100% correlate which house this lateral served, and that's why we went to two houses. So do you believe we can identify, if we
Yeah,
know
well,
the
the house
lateral,
is
we
the
can
lat-
identify the house?
The laterals come in on opposite sides of the interceptor, so, I mean, it isn't like they're joined together, or there's a guest house,
Right.
or they're next door, and even if they were, there'd be a distance up or downstream.
Right.
So pretty easy to, if you sent a camera up the line, which I thought they did.
They did, yes.
You would see a lateral, depending on which side you put, to the left or to the right.
Well, I thought that was the confusion in their report, that they know exactly how many feet down line it is, so they know exactly where the lateral is. They know which one it is. But there was a comment that they couldn't tell because the lateral was at 12 o'clock or something, so it didn't go left or right, it
Right.
maybe went up.
Oh, a chimney?
I-
But nevertheless, there wouldn't be two,
There would not be two, right.
wouldn't be two.
So the
Olden
question,
days, yeah, but not now.
Right.
If they had chimneys.
So the question was, if we can't tell, and maybe when you do a little more homework, you'll say, well, of course I can tell, I know it's that house, and then discussion's over, we focus. But if we can't tell, when you do your homework and say, geez, I still can't tell between A or B, if we put dye in the A, and we have a camera located at the lateral, and dye comes out, we know it was A. If it doesn't come out, we know it wasn't A.
See, I disagree with that altogether, because you put dye's gonna come out no matter what.
Out of the lateral.
Yeah, but it's gonna come out to the sewer.
Yes, yeah, that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for what's
No,
creating
no,
the
no, no.
infiltration.
What I'm saying is that I think you're wasting your money and your time putting dye into it. Take a camera and do it right and find the crack.
Well, you needed to put, that's what I'm saying, you need a
Dye
camera.
doesn't make sense, because it's not gonna leak out it's gonna leak on the ground, but.
I'm not
most of it's
looking for
gonna
the
come-
source of the I&I, we're looking for the house that's connected to this lateral.
And we should be able to find that with a camera, is what I'm
Well,
trying to say.
if I might here,
Good.
34 Elizabeth Street has now given us permission to go and investigate their end of this. I mean, that's what it says here. It says that 34, anyone is welcome to come down and investigate. So if we go down and investigate 34 and it's not 34, then we know it's 33.
But how much I&I are we actually talking here?
I know, that's,
1,440 gallons a day.
But if Weston Sampson identified this how many years ago?
2?
2, I don't know.
Well, I mean, why are we still even talking about this? Why wasn't it
This,
repaired?
just for the same reason we're going around and around in circles, because we can't figure out which house it is. If we figure out which house it is, we then have a whole
But you
process.
just said Weston Sampson identified where it was.
No,
They
they said
identified
it
the
was
lateral.
between 33 and 34.
They identified the lateral. It's
They-
200 and so many feet downstream.
They were clear that they couldn't identify the house. Jack, I
Okay.
don't know from there.
Maybe they're right, I mean, I'm speculating. Maybe they're very close to each other, maybe the houses are not exactly the same, maybe they come up into chimneys, so they can
That
now
was
say
it.
which one would be in front. We don't always put it on the same side, we ask people where they'd like it. In that case, we'd have to have somebody camera the line and set the camera right there on the downhill side of both of those, and then dye, one or the other. The dye wouldn't necessarily tell us anything about the infiltration,
No,
but it would
which
tell
one?
us which lateral goes to which
Right.
house. And I guess if you followed that, you would say, okay, if this is the lateral that is attached to the house with PVC, it may be the other one that we would give some further exploration to.
So, is that something that your department can do, or is that something you think we would have to
Madam Chair, I
hire?
think we should go back to that after we talk about the next
Okay.
couple issues. But the question I got is, how did Weston Sampson know precisely what the I&I is for that pipe?
They measured, well, I don't know what the technique,
How would they measure that?
you'd have to ask them. I mean, that we
Doesn't
paid them.
make- It
oh,
doesn't make sense how they measure a leak in a pipe.
They're not measuring a leak in a pipe. They're measuring how much water is coming down the pipe when there shouldn't be any water coming down it.
Right.
Do we have the report from Weston Sampson?
We do?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought
It was in the packet. Well, the portion with.
From Weston
Elizabeth
Sampson?
Street, yes.
Yeah, I wonder.
There was also an email from Pat long ago discussing or describing the issue with identifying, and that it was it wasn't something easily cambered because the camera can't go up and look around, so.
But you need what he said was you need a special camera to go make the bend.
The periscope
And-
bend.
You do, and you can only make if it's in fact the chimney, call it 12 o'clock. There's no camera that's going to do that. If it comes in at a 45-degree angle, which is more likely, I don't know if it's likely here, which is more likely the case in most, then you can have that camera do that. I would
Maybe the-
just let you know that, to bring a camera in that can do that for one lateral is going to be very expensive.
Yes, and that's why, and you're exactly, everything you just said is consistent with Weston Sampson told us that, but as, I think, and maybe you understand the jargon, if you look at the report, it says the number, the distance, and then it says position, and I think it says 2, and I don't know if that means 2 o'clock, so maybe it is 45. Because they said they could get a camera that would do the job, but it would be extremely expensive to do it as a standalone. So that's why we haven't pursued that. And we've been looking for other ways to figure out which house it is. And that's when the dye discussion came up, and I think you just confirmed. But do we have a camera that's capable of?
No, we have a 30 thing that maxes at 30 feet. It's
okay, yeah.
very inexpensive. It works well, but it's made specifically for cross culverts and drainage, and so we couldn't
Yeah.
even attempt
So
that.
we'd need to get at least the
We have to have it
straight camera.
professionally done, yeah.
At a previous meeting, sewer commission meeting, and I don't think you were at this meeting, Carl, we did discuss this, and it was the opinion of the members who were present that night that this topic be added to the Woodward and Kern I&I investigation. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
So that may be a way to handle it is to add it to the scope of the Woodward and Kern I investigation. And I do think that this new information that 34 Elizabeth Street had the pipes replaced and is willing to allow investigation on their private property might be a way that we can gain some more information without doing anything very expensive with a special camera at this point. I'm not sure. I would have to defer to Jack on that for technical advice.
So
If I could ask,
Ryan, go
we've
ahead.
been talking about this for 2 years, and we're just finding out that the pipe's been replaced since 2002.
Yes, that's,
I mean, that's kind of just alarming to me,
It's a lot
because
of-
it definitely just cuts a big, guessing game out of, like, oh, both sets of pipes are old. Oh, now they've been replaced,
Only one set, yeah.
2002.
I think at the bottom line, I agree 1,000% what you just said.
Yep.
yeah, I think it's disappointing, but until we know which house it is, I think it's encouraging that this homeowner is going to allow us to do some investigation. So that's the best thing I heard. Whether it's plastic pipes or not plastic pipes, I mean, there could still be a problem even with plastic pipes, so I don't think it excludes them.
No, but I mean,
It's
it's
unlikely.
highly unlikely.
Less likely.
Yeah.
The
Less likely.
original ones are clay.
Yes, the other side would be clay then. Unless.
Well, we would have said that last week about this one.
If the Weston Sampson report is true, what bothers me is that it's coming down when it's not raining, or when it's another source. So it could be a sump pump or something like that. But again, I think, Madam Chair, we should go on to the next one, because it kind of ties it all in together, I think.
Well, he won't be here for 15 minutes. Jack, is there any investigation that you would recommend on number 34, since they're allowing us to go on their private property to investigate, that would help us solve this problem?
I don't want to name the person. If I did, you would know him. He plays the accordion. He's quite the character in town, and he's very outspoken and loud, and so I can tell you that it was PVC because I put it together now with the individual. I mean, I don't know if he's got PVC right into the home. We're going to check that he's telling us the truth. I mean, I think our efforts should be at the other, on the other
33
address.
then.
And what would you suggest that effort would be?
Well, I don't know. We just discussed that, didn't we?
Oh,
I would first just go over, did we send a registered letter? Do these people know
Letter.
a letter?
Yep, and they also are fairly new owners, they just.
Yeah, I mean, I could go over and introduce myself and tell them the problem and tell them that, we're trying to make it better for everyone, not just them, and whatever I can see, I can see. I mentioned to you right off the bat is look for something that's visible with no excavation.
Well,
So
if-
it's not invasive on the
Right.
property, and see what I can see and explain to them the whole situation.
If you would be willing to do that, I think
Yeah, I'll do
that
that.
would be awesome.
Yeah, if they,
Yeah, number
most people are
33.
reasonable.
Yep, thank you very, very much. That's awesome, terrific. Okay, well, we have a few more minutes. We actually have 15 minutes. We're a little ahead of schedule here. Barb, do you think we can, oh, maybe it's him now here, coming here now.
We shouldn't
I think we have to
do
wait
that until
anyway.
7,
right?
Yeah.
really.
We can go into current business if you want.
Just move something
Yeah.
we could just start with the
Could
agenda.
could we, because I think the first item on the agenda it also relates to a 7:30 hearing, so could we maybe skip to the second item, discussion of small water, because I'm not sure what that is even.
Yes, I know you're not. And I would be happy to go to the small water.
These folks are here from Woodard and Curran. It might be,
Oh, this is Scott?
yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome
Uh,
back.
Can we start this early, Barb? Not really.
I think
No.
you're supposed to.
Okay,
because
do you
the
think we can
agenda-
put small water in here?
Sure.
Yep.
Can you pull the letter out, please? I was alerted after our last sewer commission meeting that our consensus to hold off paying small water until they explain the bill and come to the meeting might be a double breach of contract.
Double.
And so I made an appointment with Adam, and I went in and I discussed it with Adam Costa, Town Council, and he reviewed the small water contract. I brought the contract with me. He reviewed the contract, and he said that if someone doesn't provide the service, they're in breach, but if you don't pay them on time, you're in breach. And so he advised against doing that. He said he was also concerned that they did not come to the meeting when the contract clearly says they will come upon invitation no more than 4 times a year. So Adam volunteered to draft this letter. I think there's an error in it. Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, Small Water didn't cancel the day before, they canceled the day of the meeting. Is that
correct.
right? So Scott asked us to make sure it's correct. I can make that one correction. But he's recommending that we send this letter, so I will give you time to read it. It goes on to the other side.
You could change days to hours, and I think that would
Yes.
correct the mistake. We getting water today? Thanks.
Why did SWS cancel? Anybody know?
3 o'clock in the afternoon, the day of the meeting.
But was there a reason?
They weren't ready.
Unprepared.
Prepared for what?
Come and discuss their bills with us and the overcharges.
Have we determined there was overcharges?
We were investigating that. We had concerns, but we needed a discussion to be able to pinpoint.
And they were going to try to encapsulate, not necessarily charge by charge, but come up with a definitive statement as to their position. And they wanted more time. They felt they were unprepared and needed more time to do that.
So at the present time, we have Small Water scheduled, or at least invited to attend, the November 19th meeting. Am I correct, Barbara?
That is right.
You have extended that invitation, and have they accepted?
Yes.
So,
Is there is there some reason why we didn't have them tonight?
well,
Since it was such an urgent thing, and I mean, I'm not standing up for them, believe me. I'm the one that got the email, but we wanted to get them in here as soon as possible, and this was the next meeting.
we're just waiting till we get everybody was comfortable with the process.
Okay.
Okay? So, at the present time, I know we have to change days to hours. That's a missed piece of information in here that will be corrected. But what is the commission's feelings about sending this letter?
Could you be, I've read it, but it's a lot, it sounds, I'm not a lawyer, so, just at a high level, what this letter is saying to Small Water, what?
Adam recommended it because he said it's kind of like a warning. Like, you're supposed to, the contract is very clear, and Adam also went over the portion of the contract with me, which says that it's 24/7 service. And so he was also concerned about the overcharges. And then he was concerned when we asked them to come in, and the contract clearly says they are to come in on invitation 4 times a year, and they just canceled 3 hours before the meeting.
Right.
So, this is what he would recommend doing in that situation. And you'll notice at the end of the letter, it simply says, we don't really want to do anything at this point except talk to you. We're not interested in any further action. We simply want you to come in and discuss the bills with us.
So it's sort of putting them on notice that we could do something, we're not gonna now.
Right.
But, okay, great. That's-
Because we did have to pay them, and so after my meeting with Adam, I did meet with Ryan, and I met with Jack, and we said, pay the bills. And Barb, have you paid the bills?
We had no warrant this week. It will be on next week's warrant.
Okay. Wonderful. So, commission's feelings.
Has anyone talked, I mean, this is,
Me.
I don't want to seem
We
like,
weren't going to pay them, so we had to pay them, so.
I don't know who would even say that. That's breach of contract if you can't pay them unless they show cause. And I would call them up as people and say, come in here so we can discuss
Well,
this.
that that occurred, Dave.
But that was-
That occurred, right, Barb? You called them up and told them, come on in, we have some questions. So
they
that
come-
did occur.
did they
and-
come in?
No, they canceled 3 o'clock in the
So-
afternoon, the day of the meeting.
But why would they cancel? Because they weren't ready. So give them the opportunity to get ready and come in.
Okay?
But to send a letter, I mean, if we didn't just sign a contract with them, I would say, fine. But we just signed a contract. All these issues should have been taken care of prior to signing a new contract.
Well, the issues are covered in the contract.
No. If you had issues with billing and stuff before, go back 7 years, that is not.
No, there's no issue with 7 years.
Listen, what I'm trying to say is that we should be going forward with SWS. This, to me, if I was SWS, I would be kind of upset. That's me.
Okay.
I would think
There's
of-
no problem with 7 years' worth of billing. These are the bills for the last
No,
3 or 4 months.
The last meeting I was at, I thought we all decided that let's start off and do it right. And it doesn't look like we're doing that.
Well, at the last meeting,
I
when you
wasn't
weren't
here. I
there,
understand.
people said, don't pay them because
You can't do that, though.
they haven't done the work, they haven't come in and talked to us about the bills. And we don't think the bills are correct.
Well, what work haven't they done?
No, they haven't done the work of coming in and talking to us about the
Okay.
bills. And we invited them in, and there are questions on the charges. There are questions on the charges. So, Ryan?
Well, contractually, they're supposed to come in every quarter
Yep,
anyway.
On request.
upon request.
We-
But we did request, and we gave them 5 weeks' notice, and they didn't come in.
Okay. On that point, listening to our attorney's recommendation, yes, send a letter. I just wish we communicated better with them. And listen, I like SWS, I think they're a good company, but sometimes you gotta sit down with them as one-on-one people. And Jack, do you agree what I'm saying, or am I off base?
Since you asked me, we did have a, Barb and I and Deborah and John Mohammed did sit down and speak together informally, sort of following what you're saying, Dave. And I don't recall the 5 weeks, but I knew at that point, which was a couple weeks ahead of time, that they were planning to come in and and discuss with us the differences in not so much every bill, although they're prepared to do that, but on why they bill the way they bill, why the extra charge is more than any specific charge. And they were going to come and prepare a statement for that. As a result, they emailed me at 3 o'clock the day of the meeting and canceled, saying they weren't, for lack of a better phrase, they were unprepared. We have discovered that that's it's categorized here as a breach of contract.
The
when they-
contract says when they are invited,
Yeah,
they must come 4 times a year.
right,
So when we extend the invitation,
right, they must
they
come.
cannot cancel. just
Okay,
because
they
didn't
did,
get
but
their work.
am I clear in that they were invited 5 weeks ago?
They were, because at
As
the
I think it makes a difference. If they're invited a couple weeks ago and 5 weeks ago, they had
The reason
plenty.
I know the time frame is because Carl was going to Iceland. And so we pushed the invitation for Small Waters back until he returned from his trip. So there were 2 sets of meetings, and then we moved the meeting back a week. Remember, it was not on the scheduled meeting, it was moved. So that's why I
They were
know.
informed of that timetable.
Yes, they were
Okay.
invited here for this meeting.
Okay. What this, hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, because I think we should hear from the commission first on this. How do you feel about this letter? Because it seems to me,
I think I was
you know,
clear.
in my permission, in my position, when it rises to the level of legal correspondence,
We don't have to send this letter. This was just a recommendation.
I don't have a vote on that. I just think it's a,
Well, you know what we could do is we could hold the letter. They're invited for the 19th, and if they don't show on the 19th, then we have a letter we could send.
And the only problem I have with that is, again, I wish we talked to them before, but they did breach their contract. So if our lawyer is saying send this, then send it. But they're going to be coming in and talking to us. I mean, our lawyer is recommended because they did breach a contract.
Because they didn't come, yeah, and they canceled at the last
But
one.
knowing Debbie and this company, they had their reasons. And I think, they're people just like all of us.
Oh, I
They're-
agree.
They've proven to be a good company, and they're saving us money. And even if you get a bill or something, they're still saving us money. And at the end of the day, I think we'll work this out. But because they didn't come, you would have to send the letter. I wouldn't go against our attorney.
I think, Joan, and you were the one that spoke to Adam.
Yes.
Firsthand. So, do you think is it your opinion, and you're not a lawyer, I guess, but, that this was mentioned as breach of contract in reference to us paying or not paying?
Well,
Well-
I specifically asked Adam, I said the consensus of the commission was to hold off payment till we settle all this.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you cannot do that, that's a
Right.
breach of contract. And he said that the way he read the small water's responsibility with the contract was that, number one, it was 24/7
Yeah.
coverage, so that we shouldn't be having all these overages.
Yep.
That's what he said. And then he said, it clearly says when you invite them in, they must come 4 times a year. They can't say, no, we don't feel like it.
Well, I don't, you're right. I asked the question and got a good answer. There's nowhere in the letter that it says anything about the 24/7
No,
coverage.
because I said to him, let's not put that in the letter, that's for the discussion.
Right.
We want to get them in here. That should not be in the letter at this point, because, and Adam said, it depends on, was there any new pumps, was there this, and I didn't know.
Right.
And so he said you should invite them in to discuss it with them. You shouldn't
Yep.
put that in the letter. That's not appropriate at this time.
Then do you think, what's the commission's thoughts on sending a letter?
I think when we wrote the
RFP.
information RFP, and Mike and I worked on that a long time, the guts of a contract is X, Y, and Z. All right, so if you want to hold money back from a contract, that's one example. If you want to hold back the change, the bill for the overtime or whatever that you're charging, that's legal. You can do that. You can
No,
question-
I specifically asked Adam that. He said, not in this case. He said, we need to pay it, and then we can
No.
negotiate
And-
getting it
and Again, I
back.
got to talk to Alan, but the contract is for X amount of money. You're obligated to pay that. And there is no area in there for a change or something like that. So you don't have to pay that until you negotiate that. But the contract has to be enforced.
No, there is something in there about some extra for certain things, but he said that at this point, it would behoove us to simply get them in and discuss it with them.
Exactly.
And so that's why the point of this letter was not to address the overages, but to address the fact that they didn't come in.
Get in here and talk to us.
Get in here and talk to us, that's all.
So, yeah,
And then from there, we
That I
move
agree.
forward.
That I agree with. That's exactly.
That's
what
why that's the only thing mentioned in here.
So I suggest we take Adam's advice, send the letter, so we're covered there. My experience with SWS, they've always been willing to work with us. They've always
Right.
had a great relationship.
Right.
So we invite them back in and take care of the rest of it at that point.
They've been
That's it.
invited. They're invited
So-
for November
So we
19th.
So we wait to the 19th now and see what happens.
So before this letter is sent, I will take a motion to send the letter with the correction that the word days is changed to hours since they canceled at 3 o'clock
It's a 10th line from the bottom.
afternoon.
Yeah.
Fine.
So moved.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Barb, you want to make the change and tell Adam? Thank you so much.
Perfect, 7 o'clock,
7 o'clock.
at least according to that.
And,
So it would come from Adam?
oh yes, it's going to come from Adam, yep. All right, so we have our appointment here now, and that's Steve Maderos from Woodward and Kearney?
Scott?
Scott Maderos from Woodward and Kearney.
Hey, other people call me Steve too.
Come on up, Steve.
Dave, want to give him some room?
With me again too.
And who do you have with you?
Last time.
Who do you have with you? You have someone with you?
Yep, Lauren Herbal.
Welcome.
Let's go. Does it have to be in the middle or in the end?
I stick Lauren in the middle and I try to stay.
Okay?
Yeah, that works. Thank you. Welcome. So, we are here over the scope, right? And we're over the items on the scope and sequence of the I proposal. And I believe the commission had some questions about some of those items last time.
we're unaware of why we're here, so, I mean, we came in, we talked, you voted to issue a contract, we went back and forth with legal, we established the contract, we sent it in for your endorsement, and I got a call that you didn't endorse it, so, that's why we're here, as far as we know, to talk about whatever it is that you feel you need to talk about.
Good evening, thanks for coming out. One of the questions that I have is, could you just briefly discuss to us and the residents at home what you're going to do for, how much was the contract for?
Lauren, do you recall the number? It's about 40,000.
40,
Yeah.
So what is some of the things you're going to be doing for us?
Do you have a copy of our proposal? I think
I'm
it's.
sorry, I
laid
don't
out.
have it with me here, but yes, I read your proposal, but I'd like you to tell everybody.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's diving into all of the tedious depth of records and previous studies and work that you've had done on your system over the years. Pull all of that data into a compiled evaluation, and then look for, develop your shed, reevaluate all your all your sewer sheds, take a look at those drainage, those areas, and your GIS data, and evaluate all of that, make some determinations and recommendations from that data evaluation process for where you may be experiencing issues that are either have not gone corrected through the previous process you've gone through, and or we would recommend that you would do some further field investigation to evaluate any ongoing II that is identified in those areas. So it's really going through the process of the scope developed by this commission. I mean, we responded directly to the scope you developed, which was a pretty lengthy process that went on. We came in, it was a bit of an odd process where we came in with another 4 or 5 other consultants, sat in a room and all kind of looked at each other to help you figure out how to get a scope together that would get you what you're trying to get to. Which really is wrapping your arms around a big mass of data that is coming from a lot of different sources, various investigations, various consultant studies, data from your pump stations and other sources. So put your arms around that as we understand it. Make some recommendations going forward to make sure that you're not investing significant capital moving forward and chasing I&I and not really getting any value from that. So that's the objective.
So that's a very good question, and what I have the question on that is, we've been on the sewer commission, I was on it for 5 years before, Mike and I served on it, and then we just came back in the last couple of weeks. We've had all kinds of engineers come in this town, look at I&I. What makes you feel that you're gonna come in and solve it, or do you have that opinion, or what makes you
We
different
don't
from the
feel that.
engineers?
You guys put out an RFP and ask for an engineer to come in and look at your data and give you a third-party independent view rather than have the guy that's had his face in your system kind of looking around for years and years and years. So we just responded to the RFP. We were the only ones that responded. If you guys don't feel like you need to look at the data, we understand that. We just responded. We came in, you voted to give us a contract. So I understand the board makeup has changed, so if your priorities have shifted, we're happy to not move ahead with the project.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I could, just to reinforce exactly what you said, 'cause I was intimately involved in this whole thing, and we did have that uncomfortable sort of probably session to help us resolve the scope of services, and it was very helpful, quite frankly, and it did allow us to resolve them. Woodward and Curran is 100% compliant with what we asked for, and we had worked on this for quite a while, even starting back when Weston Sampson was working for us on the state DEP. We were required to put in a report to the state DEP, what we were doing about I&I, and give them a schedule of how we were going to proceed. So this discussion started back then, quite frankly. It must be over 2 years now. And it was determined and submitted in that report as part of our plan that the first step we would take would be to do this effort. And that was in the plan to the state, and that this effort would be done in 2019-20. I thought it was too long back then, but now it's upon us. So again, they've 100% complied with what we asked for. The commission has taken several votes, all the way from approving the DEP submittal, which had that step in it, to approving the statement of work before it was sent out, to approving the selection of Woodward and Curran as the supplier, And the only remaining thing at that point was to work out the contractual issues, which have been worked out. Barb and I confirmed that with legal. So all of those things are in place. So I'm not quite sure.
And we didn't, I mean, we were asked to respond is what, so we're happy to dive in, and we think that we've done this in other communities, and I think it's pretty typical that once you've sort of chased a system around and come up with no more I&I or, I think one of the big issues that I've heard from this commission in previous meetings and the conversations to develop the scope was that, there are some inconsistencies, there are some spikes in, lost water, and there are some reasons to believe that there's still some significant I&I maybe out there that, or something's going on. And so I think having a person that is unrelated to your system that has a really sort of objective view of the system that can dive in and evaluate the data, you may come up with something that someone else is, if you look at the same problem over and over again, you may not find the solution. You bring someone new in, they may be able to have a totally unbiased perspective on what they're looking at and see something that someone else did.
Yeah, and if I could also add, because, again, there's a lot of history here, and you guys were with us a long time, and been, during this period, unfortunately, we're not there, so we weren't in the process. It isn't just looking at the existing data, which does have some anomalies to it that can be very important to understand. But it has a significant new contribution because it takes the data we have from pump stations, inflows and outflows, and turns that data into some information for us and gives us a long-term tool that will help us, hopefully with a push of a button or maybe two buttons, give us an ongoing way to look at which areas, are contributing this I&I that we, at a very high level, looks like 40 to 50%, which is just unacceptable, and especially in light of the, Leominster pushing now that we pay, dollar for dollar for the I&I, becomes extremely important to run this to ground, or else, if we take the high-level data we have from, Barb, that we've been tracking without knowing where it's coming from, the difference between what we're billing people for and what we will end up paying Leominster, if nothing else happens, and this was in place this year, it would have cost us an extra $180,000. And that's what we would have to put in the budget next year if we can't work something with Leominster. And another, maybe it's a dream, but I dream, another possible thing that would come out of this data analysis is an argument to take to Leominster that these meters on our outputs that they're going to bill us by are not reliable, because they're going to take a look at that data and be able to look at, all the factors that go into it. And maybe there's some question about those meters, which would allow us to maybe buy some more time with Leominster. And every day we buy is thousands of dollars. So there are other, things that, we didn't even know at the time, but now that that could become one of the more important reasons to get this going, is to help us with the Leominster IMA.
So Scott, I guess, I'm Mike Nault, by the way, one of the new members. I understand that you're basically, you're bidding on what you were asked to do. I guess when I looked at this, I was looking at it that we've already paid people in the past lots of money to draw conclusions. We've been frustrated over them. So I thought it was a lot of money to go back and review. But I am intrigued by what Kyle just mentioned about the pump stations. I guess it gave me a new look on how to find the I&I by the pecking order of the pump stations, what's flowing into it, and and down the line to help pinpoint. So I guess my question would be, and that's one of the reasons I guess that I asked for you to be here, is how would you go about that? Like, what's your intent? For, in other words, we start with pump station number 1, what's coming into it. Obviously, pump station number 2 becomes a more complicated formula because it's already got what pump station 1 had coming through. How does that all work? Is it just numbers? Is it just plugging all the numbers, or?
Yeah.
Lauren, you want to take that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can speak to this, and that's where, oh, sure. That's where the GIS piece comes into play as well. What we would do is look at the catchment areas of each of the pump stations, see how many miles of pipe they're contributing. From that, we can glean how much, is being impacted by infiltration in an inch gallon per mile day,
Sure.
basically,
Okay,
some,
right, yeah.
EP, or Mass DEP requirements. So we look at all of that on a catchment basis. So we did include time in here to look at existing GIS. We include some time if we needed additional data to be collected or needed. We have some CCTV time in there. So we would look at it from, the catchment by catchment basis. And then, as you were saying, if one is downstream, of course, we account for anything that's coming in from the upstream pump station and catchment areas.
Yeah,
But it is a methodical process, so.
Right.
We basically take a fresh look at the community and establish how good are your contributing areas and how accurate is your GIS data, and then build on that. And we, as I say, we've, as Lauren said, we have time in there scheduled to, or appropriated for that purpose.
Right.
Because really the first step in any evaluation of what you have for existing data and the value of that data is to just establish how good the data is and how much is there. Because if there are holes in the data, that's going to be an issue. So
Right.
we have time to get that data. So, but it's a holistic view of the entire town in hopes to start big and then drill down to small. And when
Right.
you drill down to those sort of areas where the real problem is, that approach is one that works. I mean, that can work. It can also not work. I mean, the bottom line is,
Right.
I agree with you. You've had some other firms working for a long time, doing a lot of the work.
Yeah.
I do think there is something to be said for
Right.
being in a system too long. So that's true. I mean,
True.
those are good
True.
firms. We compete with them for projects and communities all over New England on a daily basis. And, we win some, they win some. But sometimes you're in a system too long. And it's helpful to have someone new
I
in
mean,
the system.
that's the one piece that I really like a lot, is the pump station part of it, because it'll hopefully identify an area that we've got to take a strong look at, and instead of concentrating on the whole system, concentrating on maybe 2 pump stations or
Right.
or whatever. So that intrigues me. That's why I just want to hear more about that
And I think
part of it,
if you
the
read our
puzzle.
scope, you'll see that what the purpose is, once you get to a certain point where once we can hone in on that area, then there's recommendations for
What to do.
further field investigations and that sort of thing. We just don't know until we start really developing that first blush look at
Mm-hmm.
the data, where that's going to direct us, whether that puts us in the northeast corner of town or the southwest corner. I mean, we don't
Sure.
know until we get there.
The other thing, I'm sure you know, Mike, but the nice thing is this, what they give us is going to go into the future. So we'll be able to use that going forward to see if we see changes in those areas. So we can easily, quarterly, take a look at this data and just see, is it consistent? Is the problem still in that area, or all of a sudden do I have a spike here and there's something happened in the other area? So we get a tool going forward, once this is all completed, that we can use.
So, go ahead. Well, so that just reminded me that, so part of this is said and done, we're gonna have, or you're gonna establish some sort of software, some program to follow, so we can track this, or?
Yeah, we have an Excel.
Yeah, it will be
It'll be
Excel-based,
okay,
but,
yeah.
and we see that as being an interactive process, working with you to make sure it's giving you the information you want and need, so.
Okay. Now, how complicated is that gonna be? Excel can be
Right.
kinda.
Well, the preparation of it, I'm sure there's a little bit of detail that will go into it, but the result will be so that's user-friendly, and so
Okay.
that you're able to move forward with it, and, yeah.
Okay. That's it. That was,
A couple questions. How long is this going to take for you guys to do? What's your contract?
I think we had 4 months in there, is that
Like 4 to-
correct?
Yeah, 4 to 6
Yeah,
max,
there
I
was
think.
something there.
Are you going to be requiring, I feel like I got a secret. Are you guys going to be requiring any, going into homes or anything like that? No smoke tests or anything like that?
No, the smoke testing we did not include, I believe it's CCTV, so that won't require any homes. But if we are required to go into homes, we would coordinate that beforehand. We wouldn't.
But that's not part of your contract?
Not as far as the additional investigation goes.
The other question I got is that, again, being in this for so long, sometimes if you look at the obvious for so long, like you just said, you gotta look for other alternatives. For example, the water department bills us and we get our sewer off the water department bills. Do you guys look at that at all to see if there's any kind of an error with that? Water going in, water coming out?
Yeah, we're going to look at the billings, what's the inflow and the outflow.
Yeah, that Excel spreadsheet will be linked through the water, with the water data as well, so.
But do we know if the water data is correct, I guess is what I'm saying?
We don't know that, and it's certainly something that we would look at the data and say, there's anomalies here that we think are concerning and kind of point you in the direction. I mean, we can't obviously dive into every aspect of how the water process is happening and how their billing process is going, but we can certainly, that'll be part of our ultimate report and a development of our final report, that we think there are issues here with the water system billing, or we think there's issues in pump stations in this area, and we think some further investigation, and those recommendations will all be made as part of the report.
That's all included in your initial contract?
Yes.
What do you think that, after you working with the present board, or I should say the past board, what unexpected circumstances do you guys see coming up?
I don't see a lot of unexpected circumstances with our scope per se, because really this is not a further field system investigation. We'll have recommendations as to where you have to do further investigation perhaps, and you may decide along the way that maybe we think we should deploy some of those investigations to enhance the results of the report. But I think that when we're done with the report, I don't see a lot of potential change to our contract, because we're looking at all existing data that's available. We're evaluating that, and aside from some additional CCTV work that we have kind of plugged in, we're not out trying to do a lot of add-on services here. We're going to have a report that says we've identified that here are the next places that we think you should go, and that's either is or is not consistent with previous focus that you've had, and we've developed this tool to help you track that in the future. And if presumably any system that's experiencing I&I in the future needs to you need to do things in your system to rectify it once you've located it. And hopefully we'll be able to be part of that process with you as you move to that stage. But in either case, the scope is pretty self-contained and not really subject to a lot of potential changes.
Do you have a list of references? Did you guys check out the references? Okay.
Yeah, there's, in my mind, no question with the references or the quality of the work that your firm offers. You're obviously a well-known, well-respected engineering company, and probably one of the top ones. So I don't think that's in dispute. But I did have a question. The tool that you're going to develop for us, would you be available by phone or whatever, email, to provide support in using that? Should we have questions after the?
Yeah, we can definitely make ourselves available.
And we would provide obviously when we deliver the tool, any folks that want to understand the tool are welcome to be part of that conversation as well, but we're here, we're here and local, and when you need us, we'll make ourselves available.
And we also appreciate your patience with us while we work this out so that we can be comfortable with it, because I'm sure it's trying for you. And I'll apologize for that up front.
It's fine.
Jack, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, thank you. I remember a discussion that, it was briefly, that was we may eliminate certain tasks or in the contract. I remember that discussion, and I had spoken to Scott, because we have a bottom line lump sum budget.
Right.
So, the commission should understand that the scope is the lump sum budget, and that if we are contemplating eliminating some things, as we were that evening, and that just might have been for discussion, that how that will affect, I don't believe that will affect. It's a lump sum budget. At that point, I recommended to the commission that if they were thinking about doing that they should contact Scott and have him put a value on tasks 1 through whatever many he has, or else go with the contract and say, because, you know, like any job, you may spend a few more hours on this and a few less hours on that, and there you come with your lump sum budget. But if you have an expectation that you say, well, geez, I really don't want you to do that. We've done that in spades, and I really don't want you to, well, that should be decided beforehand, because we can't expect a reduction in the lump sum simply by saying to these folks, oh, we don't want you to go that far. Now, maybe we've come around past that, but I just want to be clear for our protection, for Woodard and Curran's protection, that we understand the lump sum budget going forward.
Mr. Chairman, Barb and I met with council and briefly talked about that kind of an issue, Jack, because it did come up at the last meeting. It's not, and Barb, correct me if I'm wrong, or jump right in. It's not really a lump sum budget. There are specific deliverables in the budget, in the contract. So it's not one big $40,000
And do those have a value?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different items. Now, if we get into it and, you know, a meeting and, you know, Lauren says, you know, geez, we looked at this and, you know, this isn't getting us anywhere, or, you know, the data is not really there and we, you know, there has to be a change, then that's, you know, probably in one of these lines and we have to talk. But that's a normal working relationship in my mind. So, yes, there can be some fine tuning, but council, you know, was not concerned, because we did ask him about, you know, about your point of not to exceeds and things, and he said, no, you know, the contract the way it is fine. You have some latitude in working with the contractor, and he wouldn't, you know, recommend changing anything.
Good.
Oh, right, Barb? Yeah.
Yep.
In all due respect, I mean, looking at the breakdown, you need column 1 to go with column, you know what I mean? There's nothing you can eliminate.
Well, and I was just going to say that, I didn't want to interrupt, but I think the scope that was developed is pretty straightforward, and you need to go through each of those steps to arrive at the end of what you're trying to arrive at. So if you're still, you know, focused on the result, which I think was presented in your RFP and we responded to, you kind of need to go through those steps. So I think what we talked about with the commission when we came in the last time, the former makeup of the commission when we had a vote to sort of move ahead with our contract, I think what we talked about mostly was, well, you know, the movement of maybe, you know, do you need to spend this much time here or this much time there? And so we broke it down the way we thought is reasonable. We put some cushions in for potential CCTV work. We think the dollar figure is pretty consistent with this type of effort that we've seen in other communities that we've worked in. So obviously we wouldn't have put that price in if we, you know, didn't think that's what it took. Sometimes it takes less, like we don't know the status of your GIS system. So if we find that your GIS data is fantastic, we may have a little bit of extra money in that category. It may also be that we have to have a conversation with you along the way and say, hey, we spent less money in the GIS data evaluation category, but you know, we kind of need it over here because this makes sense and we're not, this data's not coming together the way it should. You just sort of navigate through, but I think the scope from start to finish is pretty all-inclusive, and I think each step is generally required to get to the next step. I think I agree.
Any other questions from the commission? Any other questions from the commission? Mike, Dave?
No, it definitely makes a lot more sense hearing the explanation.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I guess I'm very intrigued over the pump station. I just think that hopefully it's better. Don't want that, it gives us some
Yes,
direction.
I think we all agree on the pump station component, big time.
Is there a level, I mean, you do this a long time, and our system is relatively new. I mean, we're talking, what, 20 years, our system, how old is our system? Is there an acceptable amount of I&I?
There is an acceptable amount of I&I. I mean, there are DEP guidelines based on, you know, length of pipe and that sort of thing. I think one of the things we talked about in the previous meeting is once you get all of this data sort of pulled together and see what the real value of the I&I is, it may be that one of the recommendations is, hey, you know what, it's at a DEP acceptable level, and I think you're you shouldn't, and you're gonna be spending, it's good money after bad to try to chase it.
I think that's why I feel right now. I think that by hiring you, we're spending money after bad, because we've done this over and over and over. And I think what I'm trying to say is that I like, the same thing, I agree with Mike, I like the ideas you're bringing to us, but I really don't want to spend $40,000 and come back and sitting here a year from now saying like, gee, we still got I&I. It's, I guess we're looking at you as the miracle worker.
Well, please don't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know what I'm trying to say?
No, I understand.
I respect
No, I
your company,
understand.
I just.
But I
just
guess
wish had
at
a
the end of
warmer-
the day, no matter what we do in this contract, so I'll try to qualify it and make sure that it's abundantly clear that this $40,000 that we're gonna spend here to try to pinpoint or sort of hit the reset button on where we think you need to go look for I&I isn't gonna change the level of I&I. So when you get done spending this money, I guarantee you're gonna still have the same amount of I&I, and it may be worse, but we hopefully will, the expectation is that we'll know where to go look to fix it. You're gonna have to spend a bunch of money to fix it, or maybe you won't have to spend a bunch of money. Maybe the I&I that we identify, when in totality says percentage-wise, live with it. Don't go spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars to eliminate I&I that isn't gonna pay you back, because the payback might not be there.
And you just hit the nail on the head in my thoughts, and, because it's not gonna go away. You're gonna have I&I, but I'd like to know what Jack's thoughts are on all this.
It's been painful
Yeah,
not being able to find it. I think it's likely that we're not going to find the silver bullet. We've done enough exploration. We're not going to find a pipe shear, a blasted out manhole. It's going to be more similar to the phrase of death by 1,000 cuts. There'll be some here, there'll be some there. That's my speculation on it. I think it's always wise to, if you're at an end point and frustrated as we are, to have a new look. I think that's healthy, to have a new look. I think we'll learn a valuable lesson when Scott and company are finished. If it's just so frustrating to me to have seen a lot of this go in and then have such a modern system and see such perceived failure. So, but I think the point is valid also that in the big picture, $40,000 is a significant amount of money to me and most of us. It's not that much, but it is $40,000 towards the money that we could pay Leominster. But I think it's incumbent upon us to give it a try. And make a decision, as Scott says, we're not, when he finishes, we're gonna have the same spikes, but hopefully he has a program that will at least take some of it out. And really, candidly, that's all you can hope for, is to get some of it out. You're never gonna get it all, because it's getting in there, at least in part. Not going to go, people doing certain things in the system, and it's not just the system. So it's up to the commission whether you would like to spend the $40,000 to look again.
Yep, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just, I appreciate and agree with everything Jack said, and I agree with it too, because I've been living through this for 12, 13 years, as you know, and we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to chase down I&I, and we have in our budgets and our plans going forward, we will, over the next 5 years, probably spend it $200,000 or more. The problem we're at right now, and the reason that this has gotten to the point where it is, and hopefully is kicked off tonight, is we went through with Weston Sampson, we went through, did all the metering, did everything. You guys were here, and we did the smoke tests, we did the house inspections. It was great, and we found some stuff. Right now, we don't really know where to go look next. So this is money to find out where might we have some success in looking in detail, as opposed to, blanket smoke tests of the town. because what we're talking about here is not saving $100,000. If we cut it in half, we'd save $100,000. I don't know how long it'll take us to cut it in half, but if we did that, it's 100,000. And it's not 100, it's 100,000 a year. So it's a lot of money. I think it's less than, I know in our earlier investigations with Sampson, we were spending $60,000 a year to have them try to figure out where it was, what part of time. I mean, the metering alone was, I believe, $60,000 to meter the town. And all it did was said, this half of the town is where the problem is, and we focused on that for 10 years. Weston Sampson said, that part's done, now go look at this part. And we say, whoa. Let's do a little sanity check and see if that is the part, or did we really get what we need, what we found over here? Is it really solved, or is the problem really still back there, and we just didn't really resolve it, so.
Or it's going to come down to the day we're going to sit there and say, like, that's it, there's nothing else we can do. And I don't think you've come to that reality yet, and that's where I'm trying to find out what the levels are, what is the acceptable amount of I&I, but we may have, you may be chasing ghosts, and I don't want to sound like the quarterback from the Jets, but you may be chasing, ghosts, and I think you just have to accept. I mean, you may come to the end of this and say, okay, let's move on, and that's what I'm afraid of.
I agree, and I fully expect to come out of this, and we spent we spent a lot of money to look at the manholes, but we've fixed maybe 10 of them so far. They may well come back and say, we've looked at this, we've looked at the town, we've looked at how you are with, what's realistic, and there's no payback in fixing those manholes, so don't even think about that anymore. But hopefully they're going to find something there is something that's worth putting the money in, because otherwise, the only other choice we have, I think, other than trying to find out where to go spend money and where to find it, the only other choice we have is accept it and don't spend any money, spend it in Leominster with processing I&I.
As a business person, I'm looking at the total profitability of the sewer.
Yeah, good.
And sometimes you get into a little paranoid situation where you have an I&I, we've had it for the last 10 years, you accept that and move on and try to do something else. You want to keep the rates good I don't want to raise any rates in Lunenburg either, so you try to come up with other solutions. We've been through this war a lot of times, and I don't know, I should say the battle, are you going to win the war? I don't know. I just don't think that if we keep talking about I&I and spending good money after it, we got to stop it somewhere along the way. So is this the last shot? I don't know.
I hope not. I hope this is the shot that says, we found a sweet spot. You can go make a difference over here for money that isn't stupid.
Okay.
If we do nothing, and Leominster calls us on the IMA, it's going to cost us $185,000 using this year. Next year, maybe more. $185,000 a year. That's going to be a huge rate impact to our people. And to just accept that without at least trying to invest $40,000 to see if we can impact that.
That's wrong, Carl. No one's ever going to accept that. We knew this day from Leominster was going to come. So to say that is not kind of a misstatement. We know.
If I might, gentlemen, just for a second. Here's my take on it, and we'll go around the table, and everyone can put their 2 cents in. I was at the initial meeting, and then I had a leave of absence for several months. So at the initial meeting, one of the questions I asked, were you at the initial meeting, Scott?
Pretty sure.
Yes, I was. One of the questions I asked was, will this $40,000 be cost-effective to the commission and our users? I wanted to do a program that was going to be cost-effective. In other words, in the long run, is this going to save us money? That was the bottom line, and there was some discussion of that night. So what I have heard so far is that they are prepared to come in, as we asked them to, and do a study to try and identify where there is excessive I&I. That is all that we have asked them to do. This is not a repair program. We are not getting them in here to remediate any I&I. This is, the $40,000 is simply to identify Do we have I that can be remediated? Because we all need to understand that there will always be I. There is no such thing as zero I. It does not happen. Some of the commissioners have been discussing over the past few months whether or not the $40,000 is a good investment. We have a difference of opinion amongst ourselves on that topic. We need to settle this and let these poor people go on with their careers. Because this is beginning to become a little bit ridiculous, that we drag them back in and out. So we need to or something, get going here. So what I would like to do is I would like to simply go around the table, and I don't want anybody to give a 10-minute monologue, but briefly, where they stand at this point. Mike?
Oh, put me in the spotlight, will
Yeah.
you? Now that it's been explained, and like I said, I hate to keep dwelling on it, but the pump situation, I think it's a good move to go forward, and if nothing else, it either tells us we stay how we are, or it gives us focus of where to go at. We've never, at least in my time, we've never taken this approach, and I like this approach, so.
Dave?
I think, Madam Chair, it's kind of unfair. We just got into it. This is my first meeting. I wasn't involved in it in the past. I think the 40 grand at the end of the day wasn't going to get us. I like the company. And I think we got to talk about it as a group. We never had that opportunity. But if you three did this, then you vote on it. And I'll abstain from the vote until we find out more information.
Carl?
I'm 100% behind it. I think we need to do it.
Anything else? Okay.
You said short.
Sure, but I'm surprised. I have mixed feelings. I had mixed feelings during that initial meeting, and I continue to have mixed feelings. I am not completely opposed, and I am definitely in favor of the portion of this scope which investigates the pump stations and the flow down the pump stations. I don't know if the $40,000 is something that we're going to be able to say to our users, it was a good investment. But I am in favor of the pump station, and I would like to put this subject to rest. And so this study will put the subject to rest, because if you come back and tell us you got to live with your I&I, which I assume is a possibility,
Anything's possible.
anything's possible, then, that's where I am. Ryan?
So I was at the kickoff meeting and the original one, and it's still common that we hear today is no one knows. So I think if we just go through with it, let them do their job, and maybe we will have an answer of we live with it, or we do. We somehow set up an arrangement to mediate it somehow, but everyone doesn't know, so let's just try to find something.
Okay, so at this point then, if you would like to make a motion,
I'll make a motion, we just continue and
sign the contract.
sign the contract that was initially agreed
Okay.
upon.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to sign the contract as stated. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Are we doing 3 here, or are we doing?
Yeah, you voting?
Oh, yeah.
Carries either way.
You're a member,
Okay.
Mike.
I'm going to Dave's.
Nay, one nay, the rest are ayes. Motion passes.
Welcome aboard, guys.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And I do apologize, I appreciate your patience.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
We understand
these-
it's a big,
it's-
anytime
it's-
that you're making these kind of decisions with your constituents' money, these are important decisions to make. I sat on the finance committee in my town and the board of selectmen and understand the challenges that you face when you're making those decisions because they put their faith in you to make good decisions. I also hope that there's a silver bullet at the end, but I know that we will, execute our scope in the best of our ability and be as creative as we can be in terms of what you have for possibilities. And we'll also be honest with you about whatever we find and whether or not we think expending money to try to mitigate those are
Yeah.
cost-effective things to do.
We're definitely
Because,
interested in cost effective.
because what happens is you have I&I, even when you identify a source, the cost associated with mitigating that I&I is always what's most important. And I think, as you highlighted here, cost is important. So We'll put all that in there, and
If nothing else, you do understand that now.
for sure.
You come in at the end, or does you?
You're going to come in a couple of times along the way,
yeah, you
right?
come-
No, you come in the way. We're gonna have a kickoff meeting that we'll, you know, we'll have a kickoff meeting. We'll have a kickoff meeting and,
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So, thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I have 3 copies of the contract, if everyone can sign theirs. Pretty sure with that. It has to go to council and accounting, and so,
3 copies.
3 copies, the
1, 2,
little
3.
flags
You
are
only
on
read
the
3.
pages necessary.
The first one doesn't have a flag, we just sign the top.
Oh, it's over here,
Mixed
yes.
it
No
up for us.
problem.
It fell up here, Carl. I use and reuse, so. Thank you, Scott.
You can go home and get a glass of champagne.
Can I leave now?
Yeah, listening to you talk so eloquently.
Carl, I'll
Get the other
send
two.
this back to you, one at a time. We're not going to get confused.
Did Ryan?
Did you sign it, Carl?
I did.
You did?
Those two guys.
Red, no. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, no, that's fine. It was an interesting conversation. We are.
Come back over here.
Here, I'll take, why don't you both sit up here, and I'll just put you on the chair. Yes. Okay, there you go.
I have signed 3 now. Okay. So, welcome, Bruce Millette and Bill Hannigan.
Yes.
For 189 Cross Street Sewer Extension and Sewer Service Area.
For the record, Bill Hannigan with Hannigan Engineering. Bruce Millette is with us.
Just a second. Barb, we're starting here. Go ahead.
How are you?
Good.
So I received an email from Barb, or actually, I guess Bruce did, asking, well, Bruce and Pam's in the background, she doesn't want to be on TV, asking for additional information for the commission to review relative to the expansion of the SSA. In looking at the regulations, and they were, it seemed to me that the inclination was to try to have some sort of a sewer design done at this point in time, which I'm not sure if that's what the intention was, because we can't submit a design plan to the commission for approval until we're in the SSA. So I'm trying to read through the lines of what we're asking for, and I believe what you may be asking for is more or less designation of the parcel and a distance back from the road so that it can be mapped. So that's what I've created right here, which I emailed out.
Yep.
This is the same piece here. For Jack over here.
So, Madam Chair, just on this document, this is not the same document that the extension request was made for.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, yeah, because I was very, that's the one meeting I missed, but I did watch it on TV. But I've seen,
There was a meeting that I was not able to make, and I believe that the Millettes went to the meeting, which I believe was at the
Yeah, I think
DPW
that
at the
was-
time. And at that point, they were getting the signatures, et cetera, for town meeting to get on the warrant.
And that's the meeting that Commissioner Luck missed.
that's the, yeah, it was the 24th, 9/24.
Right.
But there was a subsequent sewer extension request submitted that was approved, which was another issue in my mind, because there was no definitive plan with it, which we normally require a plan for a sewer extension. But that's not my
Well-
point here was that it's not this drawing, it's a drawing that shows 3 lots.
Right, and that's what, we have a drawing that does show 3 lots as well.
That's the.
Part of the discussion here, there was a conceptual plan that we put together, which we had come to the first meeting with and talked about in general. Then that plan with the 3 lots was shown, okay, as part of the overall project review for the initial getting on the warrant type of discussion. My understanding from the feedback that I received through the Millettes and through Barb was that there was questions about whether the commission was going to be agreeable to more than 1, more than 2, more than 3, more than 20, who knows how many lots. So to simplify the SSA diagram, basically I created this sketch, which basically is the same sketch with just an area that's highlighted, to show that to include the existing house, we need to be about 500 feet from the roadway on map 512, I think it is, 11258. So map 11258 is the parcel. We'd then be extending the district back 500 feet to the rear of the property, which would basically allow this house to be included, this lot area to be included within the district. In addition to that, what we're requesting from the commission is, because at some point there's got to be some sort of a flow calculation tied to this district area that's expanded, so that the commission knows that they're not going to have 75 houses coming in here, okay? Now, zoning doesn't allow that anyways, but the point is, and I think this came up at our very first meeting, was what are you going to do, what's your intention, how are you going to, how are we going to get from here to there? So the 3 lots is the intention. That's shown in another sketch that I brought with me as well, but it's really just the same thing you saw before with the overlay down to 500 feet. The existing house, or there's a house and is it a separate structure, or is it, yeah?
It's attached with a common porch.
Yeah, so there's really 2 buildings which originally had 5 bedrooms in it. When they did the Title V and it failed, they did all the testing and it failed, and we ended up putting the tight tank in. The tight tank permit got reduced down to 3 bedrooms, okay? They would like to put that back to 5 bedrooms, which would be 550 gallons of flow. So that would be the first.
This dwelling?
Yes, that's
So
existing.
it's still the one dwelling?
One dwelling. Okay. What they would also like to do is to be able to build another house so that they could move out of this one, because it's too big for them, because it's just them 2. They could then sell this lot and build another house on one of the other 2 lots. And then the third part of it would be to have the other lot available to sell, basically to recoup the costs of doing all the stuff that they're trying to do. So it's not intended to be, a 40B or an apartment building or anything like that. It's the existing house and 2 lots, which in the email I sent over today, I believe was 1,430 gallons, or that number.
yep.
So basically, it's 4, 4, and 5 for the number of bedrooms, times 110 gallons per day. That gets you the number that we're talking about. So that's what the request is relative to the sewer flow once we get to the point of the sewer district being expanded. So it's kind of a 2-step process. But I understand the commission wants to know what we're asking for. That's what the ask is. Okay? So now that we have the ask on the table, I think that we would like to be able to discuss that with the commission to find out what their, we're just hearing about I&I and other stuff that the commission's dealing with respect to the overall system. I believe this area is one of the newer sections of the district. So presumably it has, where it's I believe most of this is E14 systems, Jack? So the I&I in this area is probably insignificant, just because of the type of system that it is. So I think this will be less of a concern for the commission relative to developing additional I&I use
Right.
from the property.
So I know we've had a perk test for this house.
Many houses.
Have we
Yeah.
had perk tests
Yeah, there's
for the
been perks
entire-
all over the place,
entire
yeah.
lots, and they
And
failed?
we got a letter from the Board of Health was submitted to the commission, yeah, verifying that.
I personally have no problem with this because they're tight tanks. The liquid is not being returned to the environment anyway. It's
Right.
being pumped out and taken away in a truck. So any environmental concern about not refeeding the aquifers underground is moot at this point because the liquid is being removed in a tank. So my personal opinion is that I am okay with that. But I am only one person.
I understand.
So, let's have a discussion here. Mike?
And I want to be clear about what you're saying you're okay with. Are you okay with 1 house, or are you okay with 3?
I'm okay with 3.
Okay.
Mike?
I'm a little confused by what you just said. We're asking for sewer to these properties.
Yes.
Not tight tanks. We're asking.
Right.
No,
So-
no, but the problem is the
Okay.
house already has a tight tank. And the existing
existing.
house has a tight tank.
Right.
And these other lots have failed perk tests. So
Okay.
should a dwelling be placed on these other lots, They would have to have tight tanks.
Well, just to be clear,
Well, that's what I'm not
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah.
correct.
Let me-
They're
let me-
looking
let me
for
be clear
sewer
on-
to all three
Yes.
properties.
right, the-
Right.
Not tight tanks, they're looking for sewer to all three
And I understand that,
properties.
but I'm saying if they don't get the sewer, then
That's the only other.
that's the only
Tight
other
tanks is
option.
the only other.
Yes.
Well, and just to be,
Right.
I want to be 100% honest and upfront, you would not be able to build the other two houses on tight tanks. Okay, so you can't, Title V doesn't allow you to build a brand-new house with a tight tank. It either complies with Title V or it doesn't. Tight tanks are only put into place when you have an existing house that has a failed system.
Okay.
So I want to be honest about that, because that's not, I don't want anyone come away here saying that, you said you could put a house with a tight tank. No, that's not
not
what I'm
even
saying.
an option.
It's not even an
Not
option.
even an option.
So any
So-
development, sorry, Bill, I want
Right.
to be clear too, even though I don't have a vote here. So any further development on that piece of property
Needs sewer.
needs a sewer.
Correct. And what the Mallets are saying is that to give them the ability to get this house marketable is really the first purpose. Then for them to allow them to build another house that they can move into is the second purpose. And the third lot would be to them to recoup the costs of doing all this whole transaction. Okay, so it's not for them to become, wealthy on it. It's to basically have them allowed to have
It's
it.
two more houses,
Right.
max.
Right. And so by the way that, my opinion, the way the commission would be able to limit that and restrict that properly would be to limit the flow that's allowed for this expansion to 1,430 gallons.
Which is what you had in your email.
Right. So that's what I'm bringing up to the board, and you're saying that if you're not clear, let me know, and I'll try to be more clear. But
Madam Chair, is this on the warrant, by the way, the town warrant?
Yes.
Okay, so on our warrant, we're asking for, and I thought we were doing it for you, Bruce, as far as giving you the sewer for that property, not going on beyond that, because this is outside our sewer district, isn't that correct?
This is the map of what they're
Exactly,
proposing.
but we were going to town to get a variance for this dwelling, not for this.
No, we're trying to get the sewer
whole-
service area approved.
The whole-
Because there is
Area
none
is
on this
approved.
side of the road
Right.
at this time.
I think we're trying to get the sewer, correct me if I'm wrong, the sewer
service area.
service area to these
Expanded.
guidelines.
No, I understand. But what's this guy gonna say next door? And what's this guy gonna say next door to him? And do we have documentations that we failed this whole area?
We do have that.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Do we know if they
Just-
failed?
I'm sure that if we can't petition for someone else's land.
No, but I'm just saying, I'm playing devil advocate here.
Right, I understand what you're saying. They're probably, each side of us is probably in a similar situation, at the end of the day. And there's sewer on both sides. There's sewer on Lakeview Ave.
Yep.
And there's sewer on Pine Grove. Okay? So it's right here on both pieces. So it's actually right in front of this property and right in front of this property.
No, we questioned that when it first came out, why wasn't his house included? Because it was kind of like a little island.
Well,
on
these
the
aren't
side.
included either.
But that's my concern. What do
Yeah.
we do? Do we
Well-
go ahead with this and try to get that and connect the dots? Should we do that now at the town meeting? Can we change our warrant? We're only talking a little area here.
Were these people asked,
I'll
Barb?
wait for my turn.
Were these people asked?
In the original.
These people were asked in the original.
No.
Barb said,
No, I was thinking, no.
No, they're not,
That
in
was,
We're not-
that was
Further down on that
done once
top
before.
one.
okay.
they're not in the sewer service area. If I, let me let you finish that.
No, you know my
Yeah.
point. I mean.
Yeah, no, and that's,
So
and you're right on.
The objective of what I'm trying to work out here is, we're trying to do two things. One, we're trying to expand the sewer service area. And then once we do the sewer service area, we want to make sure that the flow is available for 2 additional houses.
Yep.
Okay? That part doesn't come from the warrant, that comes from the commission, if I'm not mistaken. Okay? So then from there, we're trying to get assurances that the 1440 would be available, so that when we go and we do all this stuff, before we start going out and surveying everything, doing the engineering, they start looking at house plans, getting their hopes about building a new house on the property, before we get down that road, that we've had this conversation, and everybody's on the same page with what we're trying to accomplish. That's what we're here for tonight.
Carl?
So, I'll take Dave's point first. That was going to go a little different order. That entire side, except for the beginning of Cross Street, was left intentionally and deliberately left out of the sewer service area. They're very large lots, whether they're support sewer, septic or not. At least the comprehensive waste plan felt that those lots would be able to support a septic system. I'll go back there for just a minute. I'm very process-oriented and make sure that we're consistent in our process and decision-making. We have to date been very firm that we need to have it proven to us that it cannot support septic. My understanding is, I haven't seen any data, but my understanding is that it was 2010 when the perk testing was done. And everything that we're being told now is just retelling us it wouldn't perk. Is that true? There's no data since 2010.
We didn't do any testing, so
Right,
it's
so
the
you-
data that's
so-
on file at the Board of Health is what we're relying on, correct?
Yes, I've requested that data, or give us the data that was given to the state, because the argument was,
Oh,
the
that's-
state's not easy.
That's been provided.
I haven't seen it. Barb, do we have the data that was provided to
Yeah,
the
there was a
state?
letter from Jim Griffey, the Board of Health, along with the septic plan.
Yes, we did get that letter.
The septic plan or the tight tank plan that was approved by DEP. That was all submitted.
It was-
10 years ago.
No.
No, we just got it.
Oh, we just got the letter, but there's no new data since 2010.
The data doesn't change. Soil,
But times change, and again, I'm just trying to make sure we stay to the same process.
Go ahead.
I presume we're going to get to, you would get, if we did the process, which we won't do tonight, if you got to the end of the process and said, yes, it's absolutely for sure cannot support a septic system, then, okay, we check that box, say, okay, we got through that gate, it won't support septic. I'm not sure, I don't feel very comfortable with 10-year-old data. Septic, systems have changed, that there are ways of putting septics in, so, and I don't know how much.
the design requirements have changed, but the percolation and the soil evaluation process has not.
And I
So
haven't,
that-
and I haven't seen how much of this acreage has been tested. So I'm just saying that in the process, to me, that's a gap. It may remain a gap forever, and that's fine. But I want to highlight the
No, I
fact that
think
we're.
you brought that up at the very first meeting.
Yeah, and I haven't
Okay.
gotten anything since.
Yeah, no,
Other
we-
than a letter from Jim Griffey, which just
Well-
says it was impracticable.
Well, the septic plan that we provided had a significant amount of testing on it, which tested essentially the whole front part of that. So this is on this plan here. Okay, this is the plan here. They tested down by the road, they tested up in here, they tested over in this area here. So this is quite a bit of testing. The soil conditions don't change between here and here. Okay, like testing here is not gonna help. And the rest of the lot, we're about right here. Okay, so the rest of the lot, if you remember from the letter, is an extremely steep slope going down.
Yep.
Okay, so being able to practically be able to build a system on here is not feasible because of the slope. Even if you got good soil testing over there, you wouldn't even do it.
So just from my point of view, and I'm not trying to derail this at all, but I'm trying to make sure
Yep.
that we maintain the precedences so that we don't have, as Dave said, the next one coming in and the next one coming in. And before you know it, you might as well throw the sewer service area out the window, right?
No,
So
I
I would be
understand the
happy with
process.
I would be personally happy with a letter from an engineer, yourself, that testifies that in your professional opinion, it's not feasible to put, not practicable, like it costs too much, not feasible to put in a septic system. With that letter, at least we hold the bar to a certain level still for the next people coming in.
Okay.
That if an engineer is willing to put in his profession on the table and say, we've done testing, we can't find, or I've looked at data, and I know I'm not saying do the testing. We've looked at the land, we've looked at the data, in our evaluation, you can't put a septic system anywhere on this lot, then we at least have that and say, this is the standard we hold people to, okay? So that's that point.
Now,
The other point.
if I may.
Yeah, oh, sure.
The very first meeting that we had, with you, we brought this plan, and I gave you my opinion that we would not be able to put a septic system on this lot.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, you told me you wanted something from the Board of Health, which is
I
why we're
remember
back at the letter from the Board of Health. So now you're going back and telling me now that we have the letter from the Board of Health, you want a letter from me, which I'll provide to you. I don't have any problem doing that. But what I do want in your desire for consistency, I want to make sure that we're giving the commission exactly what they're asking for on a consistent basis. I would have provided that letter months ago, because I look at this plan. I've done enough soil testing in my career to know that the soil testing that's on here is very significant evidence that the ability to put a septic system that meets Title V today is not there, which is why a tight tank would be put in. DEP, and I said this at the last meeting that I was at regarding this project, DEP would not allow us to put a tight tank in if there were any other feasible way of putting a system on the spot. That is the absolute last resort from DEP's perspective. Zero problem.
And I remember that conversation, and that's why I said, great, then just give me what convinced DEP
Which
that
is,
you couldn't put a system
is
anywhere
this
else on
plan.
the lot.
which is this plan, okay? And then you ask for the letter from the Board of Health to verify
I
that,
don't think I asked for a letter from the Board of Health, but that's fine, doesn't matter.
okay?
If
So I
I
just wanna
hear
be-
you
I wa-
correct, Bill,
Yep.
if I hear you correct, you want to make sure that the bar isn't constantly changing. You want to make sure that
Right.
you know what is being asked, and then you deliver it, and it doesn't change to another thing being asked. Have I understood you correctly?
I'm, one, yes, two, I'm not trying to slam anyone,
Right.
but I'm just trying to say that I want to make sure that if I give you this letter, okay, DEP is gonna, we can get, there may be a permit from DEP on this, okay? Because tight tanks typically come from DEP, and then they're administered by the local Board of Health. So I can check with Jim on that DEP permit, because that's something that should be in the file, and I may even have it right here. But my
Make them all
understanding from our
complete.
last meeting, the first meeting, was to get a letter from the Board of Health stating basically that this is why this system is the way it is because of the fact that there's no place else to put it.
Right. And inherently, I believe that, but we need to have the meat that we can say, this is the standard we
You need
held
something to put in
others to.
put in the
Right.
file that says, here's what we did. We looked at the soil, we talked to Board of Health. I think it's three-pronged. We looked at the soil, we talked to Board of Health, and we talked to the engineer for the project. All three pieces of evidence point to this property needs sewer.
Perfect.
And I think that we have two of those components right now,
Right.
and I can get you the third.
Great.
Perfect.
Good. So now,
No, go ahead.
because I finally got around to your point. The CWMP was initiated to make sure that the sewer system was controlled, and that's why we did the sewer service area. I'm convinced now that you can't put a septic system in there. Sewer is very close, which is a big factor here. I mean, if sewer wasn't like next door and across the street,
In both
it
directions.
would be a little different discussion.
Right.
But, so I would be supportive of extending the sewer service area. But in all frankness, I am not supportive of extending it beyond what's required to provide sewer to that house. To provide sewer to enable additional development is exactly contrary to the charter that this commission was given when it was formed, that the town was very concerned, and if we cross that line and provide sewer to enable development of an area that is not in the sewer service area, that is an extremely dangerous precedent, and I don't know why, to today's point, everyone along that street wouldn't be looking for sewer. And I understand you're willing to restrict the number of homes, and that's great. Maybe the next guy isn't. What does that have to do with it, restricting the number of homes? Why, if this, the only map that I would personally support would be to extend the sewer service area with a line probably close to where this line is. It could be where your lot line is for the next lot. We've got the layout, is to extend the sewer service area to be able to pick this house up and service.
What did the
these people.
warrant say?
Well, what's missing totally is, there is no, in my mind, there is no warrant article, because there is no map showing what the expansion is.
I thought it was just Bruce's house.
There warrant says, to see if the town will vote to amend the sewer service area map by adding 189 Cross Road to the Lunenburg sewer service area and service zone. Parcel ID 11258.
So it's asking for the whole parcel.
So it would be asking for the whole parcel. I would not support that.
Right. So what we're saying is that we're going to go 500 feet from the street as a designation of where that is, and we're saying that we would like to have more than one lot.
Exactly, and that's where it crossed the line. If that weren't the case, then I would have absolutely no problem. And I have no problem, and I hope you can get it to service that house. I honestly hope you can, because Titanic isn't helping anybody, and the sewer is right there. But to expand this to allow increased lot development is, in my mind anyway, contrary to the intent of the sewer service area.
Mr. Luck, I think, is also in our charter as well. Just,
I'm sorry, Dave, I couldn't hear you.
I think it's also in our charter as well, in our regs,
It's certainly in our mission statement.
yeah, that we're not encouraged. And listen, I thought
Well, it
when
says
we,
not to encourage, it doesn't say,
To control or enable. It is not
Control
the
or enable.
intention or goal of this commission to control or enable
so
development.
either way, it's not to
Right.
control and limit or to enable. It should be neither of those.
So to me, this would enable, if you
This would
expand that
enable.
whole lot, it would enable development.
How does town meeting go? How do you present this? Do they present it? Do we present it?
she,
Historically, the commission presents.
we present it,
So,
and then give some history on it. Now, that's not to say that at this town meeting, and the first time we met you, I think we're all in agreement, let's get your problem fixed, if you remember right. This adding on to other property wasn't part of our initial discussion. But that doesn't mean we can't go back next year and do something. Maybe we can sit back and look at that for an expansion of the sewer. But I don't think we should do it today. I agree with Carl that we got to get that done anyways, to get rid of the tight tank.
So part of the concern that we have, living there, it's literally two homes in one. I did a full in-law apartment. Now the in-laws have passed away. So I have a home that's far too big for me to live in. This forces me to sell because it's not marketable, first of all. And it's too expensive to stay there and have the tight tank. We don't even have, we don't even want guests staying over. Or we're not going to rent the other side. Fully rentable. It's a whole home. Now I'm in a catch-22 where I can't do anything. And yet we want to stay there. There's enough land up there to put a modular on our property and live on the same.
But you would separate these parcels anyways, right? You would go to the planning board and separate these? Or are they already separated?
We've been wanting to have a small home for ourselves for a long time.
Right, but as far as this parcel,
Yes.
you're going to be building over here, you need a separate parcel to sell. Is that correct? You're not going to,
Right, we wanted to leave a buffer. Personally, we wanted to leave a buffer, a space between us and that neighbor, so that nothing could happen. And then when we finally get old, as if I'm not old enough yet, when I'm old, and we need that last little bit of income, that could serve as an income to us.
but I would think your next step would be to separate the parcels.
They needed to get this through first.
Right, but if we're okay, and like I say, I agree with Carl, I have no problem approving this, but how can you put sewer over here? How can you have three extensions on one property? You're going to be selling this property and then building a new house on another lot, correct?
Well,
That's the goal.
So you should separate that first, so you can identify the lots, and then we can sit there and say,
You have the plan, right?
yeah, this is
You
the
had the divided
alternate-
plan.
The alternate plan is this.
but that has not been submitted to the planning board.
Correct. And, from a development perspective, you don't go out and do a whole bunch of all the survey work before you know what you can do, because you have to know that the value is there. And if the commission's going to just approve the single house as part of the town meeting vote, then what happens is there's no need to survey the property. 'Cause there's no-
If I hear Dave correctly, what Dave is saying is the horse before the cart, the cart before the horse. We can approve at this point in time this house.
right,
And then the next step would be to go to the planning board and have the planning board subdivide the land. And am I correct here, and Dave,
Yes, yes.
understanding you? Carl, do you agree with what I'm saying and what Dave is saying?
Well, I just want to I do agree with you.
Okay.
But when you say this house, in my mind, this house, if I use this plan, is that area. would be added to the sewer service.
His house. yeah.
Is that how the article reads? The article reads.
The article
I
reads the
understand
whole
it,
parcel.
The whole parcel.
Right.
So,
I wasn't here when.
You weren't, but we did vote on it.
but the article for
It's still gonna
town
go to
meeting,
town floor.
right, goes to town meeting floor.
Okay.
Whether this is in the sewer, whether it's allowed to be expanded to these perimeters or not.
But I believe, I believe you have a much better chance, I don't know what happens tonight, on town floor. It's still possible that because there is no plan. I mean, the Board of Selectmen are asking, well, what's the plan? Show me what they're doing. To bring a plan that looks like that to town floor and say, and I think this fits the article. It's for that address, but the sewer service extension is a part of that address.
And,
It
Jack,
is, but does, I don't think.
you're really not, because if you take a look at it, we're providing service to 189 Cross Road, right? Now, when he separates the parcels, parcel next door to him could be 191. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Our warrant is to help this gentleman out and bring sewer to that property. We didn't know about development. Now, you can spend the money and say, okay, pay for the 3 betterments, but then you're going to find out that the planning board may say, no, you can't do that for some reason. Protect your money, get your property up and running here, and then go to the planning board and separate the parcels.
Well, let's drop back a little bit. We can go and separate the parcels, you know, when's town meeting?
12th of November.
Yeah, so we can't do it before the town meeting, but dividing the property, okay, all that's doing, to me, you're just taking bites of the apple, okay? So if you're asking us to do one house a year for the next, or one lot a year for the next 3 years, if that's what the commission wants to do, then that's fine, we can do it that way, but I'm not sure if that really makes sense.
I'm certainly not saying that.
Yeah, we're
No, no, no,
not
I'm just-
saying that at
I'm
all.
I'm
I'm saying
filtering
that-
through the whole thing.
Is that whether you subdivide it or not, based on what we now know, we should not, we should try to solve the problem, which is the tight tank. We should try to solve the problem with putting our whole philosophy and our whole sewer service area at risk. If we approve this lot, that's, and in a way that it's subdividable, then shame on us, and the next guy down here who has even bigger lot
Yeah.
can come in, and a subdivision is a subdivision.
Well,
You know,
that's
whether
not-
it's-
that's
whether it's
not
2 or 3
exact-
or 5.
Does it still have to pass at town meeting? No, don't the people decide that?
But can I just point out here that Adam Costa has told us repeatedly that the Sewer Commission is not a precedent-citing board, so that we do have the option of approving some small area and not approving another area. And he's been very clear on that on numerous issues. It may not be fun, but we are not a precedent-setting board, and we can evaluate each situation based on the merits of that situation. We do have the authority to evaluate each situation based on the merits and not have it apply to the next situation.
Absolutely, and we've heard him, but he's also said, that's the technical law. However, the reality
Is that the commission's counsel?
Yes.
So, this is what I was trying to get to a few minutes ago, is that the idea of, because I've heard a couple of different things. The idea is basically we want to have this parcel of land, you know, in the town warrant now says the entire parcel. I believe at town meeting, you can pare down.
I'm sure we can
okay,
make that work.
And go down to the 500 foot off the road that this shows, okay? Once we get this into the sewer service district, it's up to this commission to decide how much flow we have. That part doesn't happen at town meeting.
No, I understand what you're trying to say, but the horse is out of the barn. We're not going to control this by flow, we're going to control, we're trying to solve a problem here for the residents, and my heart goes out to you that you can't, with that approach, you can't subdivide and build your house, and you have to make some decisions.
But that's the flexibility that the board has, won by councils. I'm not trying to quote council directly because council's not here.
Right.
But council's saying you're not a precedent-setting board, number one. Number two, you're not supposed to encourage or discourage development, okay? So I think that gives the board flexibility and latitude in a situation like this where the owner is coming in saying, I don't want to overdevelop this property. I think the reason why it's put in there to do, you're neither supposed to inhibit or promote development, is that they don't want the commission to come in and say, hey, we support a 40B here because it makes sense. We're going to give them all the sewer that they need. That's one end of the pendulum. I think you're going to the other end of the pendulum by saying you can't do anything with the rest of the land.
Yeah, and the way I understand the charter, where it says not to go in either direction, not to control development, and, not to expand. Either way, I believe what it is saying is that we should be making our decisions based on the environmental effect of the sewers, not the development. So if the water is not being returned to the ground anyway, I don't see the problem. And if it wouldn't impact what's happening in that area.
I think, go ahead.
Jack?
I think ultimately, these are all good ideas. Ultimately, it's going to go to town meeting, right? And it'll be discussed there, so this is preliminary. But I think we're losing track of one thing here. It's often said at this commission that, and sometimes, frankly, it's said when I don't think it applies, but it's often said, our ratepayers. We have a responsibility to our ratepayers. Okay, our ratepayers are the residents of Lunenburg. Now, from my perspective, my duty here, my charge, has been to support the ratepayers, not the ratepayers, the residents in any way I can. All right? It's not easy. Sometimes I don't believe in it philosophically, but it's my charge, and I believe it's your charge. Technicalities notwithstanding here for a moment, because I think we can look at that technicality both ways. Through your admission, Carl, it's a technicality, but it's not really what happens. Well, you know what? Okay, let's go with it's not really what happens in the other direction. These people bought this land in good faith. They did all the perk testing in good faith. They want to do something with their property. I don't think you're quite as old as me, but they're at a stage in their life. I think if we go to town meeting, there are people that sit at town meeting floor and say, that could be me. And you're going to hold them up by saying, well, we'll do 189 this year, and that may give them some relief, and then they need a subdivision, we'll go 191. I think it's certainly my duty. I can't speak for the rest of you, but it's certainly my duty to help these people as much as I can. And this helps these people. We're not going to get, as Mr. Hannigan says, a 40B here. We're not going to get condominiums here or any other kind of weird development. And in terms of what the other people do next door, or the people next door to them, we'll take it case by case. And they may come in and just, be something, yeah, well, that's reasonable too. Maybe it's not. But we shouldn't punish these folks on what might or might not happen. These folks want to get a house because it's situated here. They got a good piece of land. They want a couple more houses, or at least one more house. I think it's incumbent upon us to help them. To help them get to where they want to be. They've been residents in town for years. They're not lawyers. They're not engineers. Think of it, excuse me,
Yeah.
think of it as if it was your property, because that's the way I'll stand up at town meeting and say, you and you and you. Think of it as if it was your property. What would you like to happen?
Okay.
Sure.
I agree 1,000% what you just said, and that's what we've been doing. When you first approached us, we said, let's help him out. That's why we put it on the warrant real fast, to help him out at 189. All right? Nobody told us that you're going to put a couple more houses. If we knew that, we would have had it on.
The original plan that we submitted showed the 3 lots.
I'm just saying from my seat, what we talked about when you came in and saw us a couple of weeks ago.
At that meeting, it was never discussed. I watched the tape.
Not a development. So you're absolutely right, Jack. That's what we're doing. But I'm also protecting these people, and these people. That's what you got to look at.
How are we protecting them?
If this guy wants sewer now, we have to expand. We're outside our area. That's what we're doing. We're doing an expansion. I have no problem helping them out.
Well, I thought that we could take it, I thought that's my comment about case by case.
And that's something that we can do. But if you want to put 2 more here, then split the property. We have no problem doing that. But to put 3 stub outs on a piece of property, I think that is not the right thing to do. I think the right thing to do is what he requested, was to give him at least 189 sewer, and let's get it done. And we know this is not perkable, is that correct? No one's saying we're not gonna help him, we're absolutely gonna help him, but it's gotta be done right, because we're outside that area.
It goes back to the question that I started asking before, is that if we know we're gonna go to the planning board and divide these 2 lots,
Yeah.
and create these 2 lots,
Yeah.
why make us go through the process 3 times?
Because right now, this is not part of the
The sewer service area.
service sewer area. And let's see what happens at town meeting. Now, I have no problem bringing this up at town meeting, when whoever talks about it, discuss it with the residents. Maybe we could get a fly there.
Well, my point, though, is that the ability for us to create these 2 additional lots is just a matter of us going out surveying and drawing a plan. It's called an approval not required subdivision with the planning board. Matter of fact, it's not even a subdivision, it's a land division. It's approval not required. So we bring it to them. If it meets zoning for frontage and area,
Yeah.
they sign the plan. It's not a subdivision where we need an
Right,
approval.
they don't need approval.
So we can, if I had this conversation with this board 6 months ago, we would have this all divided now, okay? But my point is, what we're asking is that the sewer service area get extended, in that you allow for us to move forward with the division of this into 3 parcels of land. That's what we're asking for. We want to end up at the same place.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
But I don't want to spend his money doing all the survey work until we know that we have the agreement to end up at the same place.
So the question I have is that we have on the warrant at town meeting is to bring 189 Crossroad.
It's map 112, parcel 58.
Okay, so we're gonna say, we're gonna make an addendum to the warrant to go with 3 stub outs instead of 1. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we're going to go 500 feet.
No, I'm asking you, at town meeting to get this approved. How are we gonna tell the
I got to
people?
drop back and ask the commission a question about how do they do it? Do they typically say we're going to give 6 connections on this piece? I mean, in other words, when they did this whole other section of town, did they count?
You got one dwelling.
If I could, yeah, if I
I'm
could.
gonna-
Do you
I'm
want to
gonna-
talk, Barb? Barb, do you want?
The only point I want to make is that we knew from very early that the Millets wanted to get several house lots. The approved minutes, July 30th, Bill Hannigan stated the homeowners have had perk testing done and could only put in a tight tank. Recent sewer extensions were added to Pine Grove Lakeview, stopping either side. Homeowners want to get their current house off of the tight tank to make it saleable. If they can hook up to sewer, they would divide the 13.5 acre parcel by selling the current house, building a new house, and selling a building lot.
What date was that, Barbara?
So,
That's July 30th.
but that was,
This year.
this year.
Okay,
But
so-
that was, our new members weren't there. And the night, on the 9/24, when our new members were there and it was voted to support it, the fact that it was going to be subdivided was never mentioned. So they were not aware of what,
No, we weren't.
That may be true, that is clearly true.
clearly
I think that's,
It's taped.
I think with all due respect, that's splitting hairs.
Well, I'm just saying-
I mean,
I
we
go
can't
back
have
to the
everybody
fact,
come
it
back
was
here.
always their intention. Can we
yeah,
clear?
and I agree with that.
People weren't here and were here and voted by different people, but it was, be clear with these folks.
But nobody's
And-
saying, how do we rectify the problem for November's town meeting?
We
What do
put
we?
all this into the sewer service area.
I agree. Everyone at this table wants to get rid of that tight tank and help the property owners get off the tight tank. I also, and I hope everybody here, also wants what's presented at town meeting to pass, or else it won't get off the tight tank. If what gets presented at town meeting doesn't pass, you're not in the sewer service area, and it can't get off the tight tank.
That's what my fear is.
So,
And that's-
so if
exactly.
you want it to pass, I think you need to restrict the area that's going to the service area.
That's a good point.
And that's a gamble you can take. You can go either way,
But-
that's a gamble you take.
Have we ever not passed a sewer service expansion at town meeting?
Well, we don't know yet,
So-
we may suspect, we don't know
Oh.
yet that this commission is going to support it.
Right, well, and
We've never taken a sewer service area that wasn't at the initiation of this commission and fully supported 100% by this commission, every time, which is only 2, 3?
So we're in uncharted territory. is what it comes down to,
Well-
for many different ways,
Yes.
okay? So this is my statement with respect to the, you know, like Jack said, splitting hairs here. The address of the property is 189, that's in the warrant, but so is the map and parcel, which is more than what we're saying we're looking at. The flow is never mentioned in the sewer
Not
survey.
relevant. It's not relevant.
Exactly. That's my point.
It's not
If
relevant.
the flow is not relevant, then what's the difference between one lot and three?
Because we are enabling development. Those lots are
But you're not supposed
undevelopable.
to
Those lots are
inhibit or
not
enable.
developable. Those
Yeah, but
lots
we're
are
not
not
supposed to
developable.
inhibit or enable. I agree with that. And I'd like to say that there's a difference between being consistent and being rigid. I see a difference between consistency and rigidity. And I think that each case should be evaluated on the merits of that individual case, and not sit as a precedent-setting, because we're not a precedent-setting board. So, we've had a lot of discussion. I think we've heard everything we're going to hear. And we need to decide, as a commission, our position on this tonight, so that these poor people can go forward and at least have some information. Yep.
And just for the record, it's been mentioned a couple times that this was the first time you've heard of the fact that we wanted to have a piece of land to sell. Our very first meeting with you, Barbara, you'd have the records years ago.
Yeah.
Joan, you were there,
Yeah.
and Carl, you were there.
Yeah, I never said that, yeah. I've known. for
No, no,
years.
we came in and our first request was, can we sell a piece of land? Because we knew we were on a tight tank, and we didn't know if that land could sell, and so we figured we'd meet with the town. We did it at the DPW, and we asked that question, and someone brought up 40B, and I didn't know what 40B was. I'm thinking, all I wanted to do was be able to build this little house that we've been wanting to build for the last 15, 20 years on the land, but we walked away from that meeting. I didn't have all my ducks in order, didn't have Bill there, didn't have other people there. I just went, can we do that? And we were shot down, and we were told we can't do that. So it caused, the next step to develop, to get an engineer involved. But I'm hearing tonight that you've never heard of it before. That was my first meeting. That goes back years to get.
And quite frankly, this whole argument that we have new people on the board, we can't expect our community and our petitioners and our people we bring in here to constantly be updating the new people. The new people have to get with the flow and update, because they don't know. They can't come in and say, oh, they have a new person, let's start from scratch. I don't think that's really.
Madam Chair, that's not being said at all, and I don't know, it's kind of like weird that you're saying that. What we're bringing up is experience that we have. We've always, at least I know Mike and I have, since we've been on the board, support you. Didn't know about the 3 other properties, but you brought that up in the past. But it doesn't matter. The situation that we have is, how do we do it at town meeting to give them the 3 lots?
I agree.
So my suggestion would be, and again, I agree with Ryan, you're at risk. The town may say it, and Jack is 100% right. They never have, but there's always that first time. So if you want to do this, I would recommend that you get up at town meeting and give the presentation.
You're gonna have to. It's just so
Yeah,
many
you're gonna have
questions.
to, you're gonna have to have your engineer come.
And I think that will pass.
Yeah, I do too.
And finally, on our behalf, of course, we don't want any neighbors up there. It's a nice spot. So that's why we want the whole hill to ourselves. And we thought we'd make a little section of land, and we told Bill, make them minimum-sized lots. There's way too much land that's going to get trapped in the back. We don't want neighbors. That's the whole point. Growing up in this environment, we don't want people there. We don't want to sell that third piece of land, but the land could be saleable to whom? Maybe to the person who buys our house. Or we just keep it. It's a buffer. For us, it's a buffer. We don't want another house in between.
I understand.
Madam Chair, you know what the situation is, though? It's not, has nothing to do with you or what you want to do. We're outside the CMP. That's the whole, that's, what you do want to do is, but we're outside that area. If we weren't outside that area, you would have got approval a long time ago. So this is something that we're trying to do for you and for you at town meeting to make it pass. And I hope you guys understand that, but if you can make the presentation, I think you'll get what you want.
Now, Dave, do you think we should take a vote tonight?
I think we should, yeah.
Okay, would you like to make a motion then?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the plan that was submitted tonight by Bill Harrington, Hagan, I'm sorry, with the discussion at town meeting to discuss the lot formation that he presented tonight.
Plan.
The three lots.
You're going to go with 3 betterments, basically, is what you're going to do.
3 lots.
3 lots at this point.
3 lots.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you need a copy of that.
Okay, do I have a second to Dave's motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Discussion? Oh, we've been discussing for an hour.
But I just want to make sure, that my position is clear and give the applicants one last chance to rethink it. I personally can't support anything beyond what's absolutely necessary. I want you to get off the tight tank, and I want town meeting vote to pass. I think it's a big risk to go to town meeting with that entire lot. It seems that the motion, if you stay with the entire lot, that will pass and the sewer commission will support it. I will not, and I will not on town floor, just so you know, just be fully open. And I know other people in town who are very energized when it comes to sewer service area and development and these lines. So my recommendation is to reconsider and take to town meeting something that services that lot. That's all I'm saying.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, pass 4-1.
Okay.
You can bring that up when you present at town meeting on November 12th.
So, Madam Chair, just to review, you're going to go up and read the actual warrant. Now, would there have to be an amendment to that?
I will read the warrant, and I will read the vote from tonight. Ryan and I will present.
It's just the questions that are going to have to be answered by, there's going to be every resident that's passionate about this.
Ryan and I will, together, we're going to speak together, we'll express that the commission has supported it, 4-1.
My concern is where am I on the 12th?
What day is it? Is it Tuesday?
It's a Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
I'm in Wakefield.
But do we even have to amend it, is the question? Yeah, right?
No, because
I
it's
don't-
189, it's the whole.
The council will tell, because they're,
In line with the dividing of the land, our goal was to keep our individual lot small, as the other one in between. Am I obligated to actually complete 3 hubs all at the same time? We don't have a plan to do it. As far as we're concerned, that's going to stay that way till I'm finally, 85, 90.
Well, when you're building it, you put the stubs in. You bring the sewer line up.
Right, but I heard the 3 stubs come up, so I didn't know if I had to do the 3 stubs all at once.
It probably doesn't make sense not to.
You do the stubs, but they won't have connecting laterals.
No, but you'll have 3 betterments.
Yeah.
Right, 3 betterments.
3 betterments,
Charges.
3 charges. And do I have to do that? That's my question. Do I
When
have
is
to
the
do all
betterment
3
paid?
betterments?
no,
Once it's connected. to
Once
the
it's
main.
connected.
It's a
As it
septic.
gets connected, I have to do all 3?
yes.
No.
No,
When you,
Oh,
there's-
only once it's connected?
Each time you connect, you
Would
pay a
that be the
betterment.
responsibility of the buyer of the land?
okay. We'll have this conversation later. We'll bring the sewer line up.
Yeah.
Okay? There'll be a connection that you'll connect right away with at your house. That would be 1 betterment. And while you're digging all the stuff up, you put the other 2 stubs in where you think they're gonna be. When you go build your other house, you pay the betterment for that one. When you're 106 and someone buys this lot next to you, they would pay the betterment for that one at that point in time. Okay? So you do all the construction now, and you leave it available, and then when the connection is made is when the betterment gets paid to the town.
So off the stub onto the property line won't be installed,
Yes, it will be installed.
and therefore, wouldn't that trigger a betterment?
I'm asking you
Sewer's
how,
connected to the main.
I think once
I think
connected,
it has
right?
to, it would be
See, I
when
thought-
that next.
Well, we have lots of people that aren't connected,
Right.
but they're paying a betterment.
Still paying the betterment?
Yeah, that's true.
I think if I
Yes,
I think the only reason why I don't think he pays a betterment,
No, it's a
because he
privilege
actually
fee.
installs the sewer line.
It's a privilege fee.
It'll be a privilege fee.
It's a privilege
If
fee.
he's
Yeah, the
installed.
betterment doesn't get paid because he's paying for
Because you're
the,
paying for the installation of the
right.
extension.
So the privilege fee then gets kicked in.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that doesn't kick
Is
until
that
you
just a different
connect.
word, but I'm...
Connection fee.
You're paying to bring that sewer up X amount of feet.
I think that we're probably finished, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I can't encourage you enough to be present November 12th, or someone who looks just like you and talks just like you. and
No,
knows
I have
everything
a
that
meeting
you
in
know.
Wakefield that night. It's with my brother, so I might send my brother here.
It's a twin.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good luck on November 12th. Okay, moving.
I gave you an electronic one as well, right?
Not at this one with
Follow up with you
the, so if you
prior
can send me that.
So, which one is going to be included in the, this? Bill? Bill, we still don't
You want to
have,
slam dunk this?
it's still not clear what the drawing is that's,
Are we leaving? We all leaving?
No, we're not.
can we?
Did I give you my phone number?
Yeah, he said the one with the 3 lots, he's going to get us another
And
one.
Ryan, can you give him your phone number as well? Ryan is vice chair and I'm chair.
Chair's broken.
Give you these, okay.
So it's this,
We
it's this
should-
one.
We should touch base before November 12th.
One says.
Is this correct?
The other one says sewer
We need this.
district expansion.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we have finished our appointments.
Ryan.
Ryan Stover,
It's,
R.Y. and
it's this one.
The one that is long. Even though he said,
and his phone number.
508
I think he said
361
concept plan, yeah.
14.
I think it would be the concept plan,
It's
because
concept
that's,
plan.
because
Joan,
He said the other one was, but
P-E-A-S.
the one he's using is, confirm again, one last time?
0, 4, 2.
I would
Maybe
just
not
say
last.
that that's, if they're gonna, if the town's gonna be voting on it, that's what they're gonna wanna see.
Right.
So, yeah.
it is the concept plan that we're going to town meeting.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
is there something, since we already talked about this, I'm happy to say it's the agenda.
Go.
I don't believe so.
Then with your permission,
Thank you for attending and giving us your time, precious free time. Thank you.
thank you all very much.
Thanks, Jack, for coming. It's good.
Jack.
Helpful.
Current business, a special town meeting, November 12th, 7 PM, Lunenburg Middle and High School.
Here we go.
Barb, Article 3.
Article what, I'm sorry?
Article 3, town meeting?
Yep, I just to review, I just wanted to go through them.
Yes, good idea.
Sure. Article 3 is a correction to the motion from the annual town meeting that shows the reserve capacity transfer of 9993. The way it was spelled out lumped it in with other revenues. So we're just making it clear that it was the intent to use that 9993, which in our reports was there coming over, but it was not a part of the motion. So it's just a clarification.
Run it by me again, real quick.
The way the article was written for town meeting, excuse me, lumped the revenues all together.
Oh.
And did not break out that the 9,993 was coming from the reserve capacity fund. We're just clarifying it now. At special town meeting.
Okey dokey.
Okay,
Article 4.
4 is what we have been traditionally trying to do as once the fiscal year has closed, we move reserve capacity funds over to stabilization to preserve them for use.
Reserve
So
capacity funds
we're just
moved.
doing that because it was scheduled. It wasn't part of our FY20 budget. It was planned that we would move it into stabilization. We'll probably move it out when we go to do our 2021 budget.
Okay.
Article 8 is the sewer service area
Right.
expansion.
Can you give more detail about? No.
Just like-
We've already done small water, and Barb will have corrections to that letter and have Adam send it out. And you have already invited them for November 19th.
Yes.
Thank you. Highfield Village,
Highfield Village, just wanted to let you know, I think I did send it out to you, that the final agreement has been approved by their council and payments should start in mid-November. And it's with interest, it's.
Okay, that was my
Yeah, no.
only question.
yeah, Carl was instrumental in getting that interest in there and figuring it all out, so thank you, Carl.
The principal
Thank you,
was
Joe.
like 69.9, but if they take the full 20 years, it'll be like 85 or 89 that we will be paid. But I think their hope is that they can start.
All right.
So, So that has been done, and payments will commence.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, question, is there, are they selling that property? Is there anything in that contract that they sell the property?
Yeah, if they sell, they pay up total in full.
Okay,
100% write-up bank. is what I saw.
Signs up.
yeah, no, that's good.
Okay, Carl and Barb, Lemonster IMA, I know you met with Adam. How is that
I've
going?
been doing a lot of talking, I'm gonna let Barb talk, do some talking. I'm running out of water. Refill?
No, just
Yeah,
spoke
okay,
with
thanks,
Adam,
thank you.
he's going to review, he had, I mean, I think we had given him the IMA, but in discussions with him regarding changing over to the metering, we don't have a lot of leeway. It's more, we wanted Adam to study it and see if we have any wiggle room. The IMA does not expire until the 2025, so
Yeah, another 4 years.
we are held to it. It is now kind of just letting Adam look at it, see if we have any play, and then coming back to Lemonster and asking for some, maybe phase in.
The one, Adam was going to, give us because he hadn't had a chance to completely review the documents at the time that we had the discussion. So we just shared what we had talked about last time in terms of what might be a couple angles that we could use. But he was going to go do some more research and get back to us on it in terms of the next step. But at that point, his feeling was the next step was probably not legal. It was probably another, attempt to
Informal
discuss
negotiation.
with Roger, but he's going to document that to us. My question, I didn't think until we left the meeting to ask him is, at what point should our discussing this matter, does it qualify for executive session? Because we're going to start talking about negotiation strategies and and so forth, right?
Madam Chair, I'm sitting here squirming, and
Yeah, and that's all right.
I was just going to bring that up. I think all discussions from here out should be executive
I
session.
think so. If we could just get that confirmed from Adam that it now qualifies.
Thank you.
So, Barb, are you going to ask Adam about that?
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay. 101 Pleasant Street request for partial betterment release. This was something that we put on at the last minute. Adam asked us to put it on. Barb, you want to explain it to them?
It's just, it is a parcel totally unconnected to sewer or the sewer service area, unavailable, but.
I'm sorry, what did you say? It's in the sewer, it's not in
It
the
is
sewer?
not.
In
It
sewer
is.
service area?
No, it is not not in the sewer service area, not near sewer. It was part of the big parcel Twin City Baptist had, 194 Electric.
Yeah.
It was divvied off. It is now 101 Pleasant, and I was just looking, that has no access whatsoever to sewer. The brown is where our sewer service area is. Sewer runs on Mass Ave, and it runs down Electric, but this parcel has none. The issue is that when it was part of 194 Electric, and they were assessed an estimated betterment, that it went on record. And so the title company has found that, and they want that cleared before they allow the sale to go through. So,
Adam thought that we need to take a vote to do that.
yes, he has done up
He has
this,
recommended that we take a vote to do
right.
that.
So
Has
I'm
done-
pretty familiar with this property, very familiar with it. And I don't think we should do anything until all the outstanding fines have been paid. I don't think there's a tremendous amount of fines, actually maxes out what the town allows. I think it's around 15,000 in environmental fines that the previous contractor.
That's the property?
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that.
It's been contended, I think Carl's walked everyone's walked the property, and it's turned into a big show.
What kind of environmental
Oh,
fines are we speaking of?
they trespassed on town property and
Started logging it.
started a gravel pit,
The town was very upset
Filled the
at the
wetland.
time.
filled in a
Conservation.
wetland, diverted a.
Bob knows all
Well,
about it.
filled in the wetland should be the Conservation Commission.
But
It is.
I just want to get some clarification if the fines have been paid, because I don't want to spend a minute thinking about anything until.
Not only are you supposed to do the fines, you're supposed to bring restoration back to bring it back to what it was before.
Yeah.
And it's more than 15,000, I think it's more than that now.
Is that within our charter and our purview to consider those
Yes.
things? Is
Yeah.
is it?
Oh, absolutely.
Where?
It's basic law. We can't approve it until the title is clear. The title's not clear yet, so he has a problem. He's looking at us. How he's gonna make a remedy for
It could be
paying back the
paid.
title.
I don't know. Maybe it got sold. I know it went to auction, but that carries on.
I think-
He's trying to do the closing. This is the one thing, like, they were pressuring Adam to do this, and Adam pushed back as best as he could, but he finally did it because Heather was involved. So Adam put together, it's a partial release of betterment lien. We have no stake in the game. We're not encouraging, we're not saying anything, but we're just releasing a betterment that doesn't even exist on this
But
property.
I think we could, if he's asking for it, I think we can make a motion to approve the release if the town is satisfied with the remedies.
When you say Adam, you get too many Adams. Is it Adam Costa?
Costa.
Is recommending we
Yes.
approve this?
Adam Costas. My only concern is, if there are problems, that's awful, but is it within our legitimate authority to use our power for a betterment for a piece of property that is not in the sewer district?
I'm hoping the
And-
town
and-
filed a lien. I
And
mean,
it is not in the sewer, so we're saying we're going to use the sewer commission to control other aspects where the Conservation Commission should be in charge of those violations. So while I may share your concern, Ryan, I'm not sure it's within our legitimate authority. And if it's not within our legitimate authority and we hold this up, I wonder where that puts us legally.
I wonder if we can make a motion to approve it with the comments that we're concerned about the town's concern.
If that's within our legitimate authority. If it's not within our legitimate authority, we run the risk of putting ourselves in litigation's way, in litigation's harm's way, and then that would reflect on our users. If it's not within, if someone can pull out the document and show me in our charter where it says to do this, I'd be happy to entertain that.
And I'm
But-
pretty sure Adam
Madam-
also, council
yeah.
knows all the
Yeah, council,
issues before the town.
Adam is pretty knowledgeable.
Madam Chair, as I was going to say, I know a lot of what's going on here, and Madam is on top of it. There are agreements in process, and if he's recommending that we approve this, I suggest we
I
do.
think we should.
I just wanted to bring it to the attention.
Yeah, no, it's really good, and it took me a while to remember what was going on here, and that's why I want to make sure it was Adam Costa, that was the Adam.
So at the end of the day,
He's got his finger on it.
Madam Chair, like I say, I would approve it. I think everybody knows now how we feel about it. So, yeah.
Okay.
So
I
moved.
have just a little bit of logistics on that same thing. Once again, it has been done up with 5 signature blocks for notarizing the signature, or we can, I'm going to read it because this is what Adam provided, council provided. Vote to authorize its chair or other member to sign on behalf of the commission, voted by the commission on such a date to adopt the above release and to authorize the chair or member to sign in the commission's behalf. And that way I would eliminate the other signature blocks, and it would be
So
signed.
one person would have to go to the town hall.
Correct. So that is also
And that
just,
statement would be put on the document, or?
yep.
Because we used to do this, right?
Right.
And I would go in
Right.
to sign it, and then I would get challenged by the clerk that you can't do it. So I think I'm absolutely supportive of it.
Yep.
Just let's make sure we get the right statement on there, so the town clerk is covered, quite frankly.
Yep, okay.
All right, so Barb, can you read that motion again that Adam recommended we make?
He would recommend that we vote to authorize the chair or other member to sign on behalf of the commission. And then, I think it's in quotes, this must be what is the clause that will be on the release, voted by the commission to adopt the above release and to authorize the chair or member to sign on the commission's behalf.
Yeah.
Would be
Will
added
someone make
to
that
the-
motion?
I so moved.
Carl has made that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
I will get it. So will you go and sign it, Carl? Or-
I can, or whatever you like, Joan. I mean,
If you could, that would be
Okay,
awesome.
sure.
Because I'm also involved in something
Okay,
else.
When will, it- when, I
let me
get,
fix
oh, that's
the-
my,
Do we need a motion on that, that he's going to be the
Next Tuesday.
representative?
No, because it said or other.
I'm leaving
So these
tomorrow
were-
mid-morning
I'll ask Barb, it's a good point. Barb,
for
do
a
we
couple
need?
days, so I may not be a good candidate, because
Brian,
I can come in first thing in the morning, but I don't think it'll be there.
Can you come in tomorrow and sign?
I can't do it tomorrow, no.
It can be tomorrow, well, it would be nice if it's tomorrow, but
What time is the notary there tomorrow?
it's the clerk's.
It's the
Well,
clerk.
it's either Elaine or the clerk's office.
And what time is there?
Whoever they are.
It doesn't have to be crack of dawn, does it?
No, because I need to go and,
It has to be done because.
Yeah, if it was crack of dawn, I could do it, but.
yes, they would like it probably tomorrow. I was going to say that the clerks are open tomorrow and Thursday, but yes, he would.
What time is the clerk there tomorrow?
I think they work like 8 to 1 and then,
All right, I can get in the morning. I'll go.
Oh, great.
I'll go
Thank you.
in the morning.
Thank you. I forgot I was leaving town again.
But I can go in the morning.
Clerks.
I'll be there like 9 o'clock. She thinks someone will be there at 9 o'clock?
I need to get them the
It's the-
documents for them to sign. So you and I can talk,
Okay.
okay?
I can't do it in the afternoon.
Okay, no, I'll
Get
get
it
it
to
to you
you
first thing. Get it to the clerk.
Okay, moving right along. Grease Trap Interceptor Program, annual permit renewal status.
Yeah, this is just, I had it on here in case we did hear from A&D Crossroads. They were sent a certified letter saying that they owed $950 for the $25 a day fee. I have not heard back. And I looked to see if I had given a deadline. There wasn't a deadline. We're not, it's, the $25 a day has not continued because they
Right,
met
right,
the
the country,
qualifications. But it will come to pass when his two restaurants go to get their vittler's
Yes.
license, so there will be.
What's the
Does he-
establishment? Sorry.
A&D Crossroads, which is the landlord over Ixtapa and Dario's.
Oh, that's right.
And is he aware of that,
Oh,
about the
Oh.
vittler's?
it's happened last year, I think. I mean, he's aware. I can send him a,
That's what I'm thinking. I think maybe we should send him a little note, an email, saying, I just want to remind you that when it comes time for your tenants to get their vittler's license renewed, the fact that this isn't paid and/or negotiated with the commission is going to be a problem.
okay.
Thank you. Okay. Minutes of the last meeting.
Good.
I thought they were good. I didn't have any problems. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of October 15th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of 10:15:19.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passed. November meeting, we are not having our meeting on the 12th, and because of the town meeting. Personally, I think we've settled everything we need to talk about for the town meeting already tonight, so I don't think we need the meeting on the 5th.
I agree.
Agreed?
Yeah, I agree.
So our next meeting will be 11/19 with small water
At
Hopefully.
DPW.
at the DPW.
Sounds good.
Okay, no meeting on Thanksgiving. Business manager report?
I have one invoice, which is just the Fitchburg invoice for 15/4. And this,
15-4.
and this is the one, we had issues with the meter at Summer Street. Not kicked out as of August 11th, sorry, it's buried in here. And so the last monthly bill was a little shy, and then this one is making up for it. This is generally, Site 1, it's 8/26 through 9/25, but Site 2 for Summer Street, it runs from 8/11 to 9/25, so a month and a half. So that's why it's a bit higher.
Okay.
And it just needs to go around and get Joan's initials. Can I just keep going? Is that
Yeah,
all right?
keep going.
Yeah.
Wright Pierce wants to be on the 11/19 agenda to discuss the draft maintenance plan. He wanted to be there on the 12th, and I said, no. So they want to come on the 19th.
I don't think that's a good idea personally to have them here the same night that we're having a dispute with small water. Does anyone share my feelings on that? I think
What's that?
Wright Pierce, who does our maintenance program, wants to come on the same night that we have small water now scheduled for, and I do not believe it's a good idea to have both of them here the same night.
Unless it's a crucial, I don't know why.
I don't know why we can't wait on the maintenance plan till the following meeting.
What is the, where are they in this, in their plan?
They're ready to, I don't have it.
Which one?
They're ready to just present a draft and discuss it.
I have to
Can
go
they
to
s-
the,
That's
I was
what it
going to
is.
prepare one and take it to
gonna
the
be the-
town, an official one.
So
with the
this
motion.
is no good?
No, that's just a handout to show you what we were trying to,
So they're at that, they're at a milestone in the program, and they want to present the draft. I tend to agree. I don't think, it's certainly not urgent on our part.
No, I think we should wait till the first meeting
But I
in
would like to
December.
request that they send the draft if it's ready. It gives us some time
Yeah, I think
to
that's
look
fine.
at it, and then
Yeah.
when they do come in, we'll
Right.
better
Did you
prepare.
get that, Barb, saying that they could wait till the first meeting in December, but could they please send us the draft ahead of time so that we can review it before they come in? Thank you. And,
next, the other thing, I sent you the link, or I think, yes, the state law seminar. Carl, in our discussion with Adam Costa, the council, just said that he had put that state law seminar on YouTube,
YouTube,
actually.
YouTube,
So
yeah.
it's available. It was, Carl felt it was helpful. It
was pretty good.
It's there, it's available.
Because I've gone to every one of these things, and I still found it useful if there was new things. And yeah, as you- a lot of these things, some of the best information is from people asking a question.
yes,
And you don't get that unless you watch the YouTube. You know, you can look at the presentation, and you don't get it.
And then the last thing was just, everyone got the letter directly from Greg Kuchera, and I just wanted to, we talked about doing tonight, we knew it was going to be a full agenda, so we talked about putting it on the next agenda. That is also the 19th. And that's a
I think it's-
policy discussion, do you want?
actually, I'm looking for some member of the commission to take this on, and this is the gentleman who had to pay the $94, I believe it was, $97, when he was selling his house. Remember, it came up, and he said, why? Why isn't it prorated? And we all said, we think we ought to modify the regulations to deal with that situation. So I'm looking for one person who will just take that section of the regulations, read them over, modify them, and bring them draft back for us to talk about.
I'll do that, Madam Chair. Why don't you send me the thing? But-
thank you.
But I
Thank you
can't,
very
I
much.
can't do it till next week.
No,
That's
but no,
okay.
I'm thinking, should we push it out till December?
Yes, we should push it out to
But
December.
it's easy, just rewording it.
Yeah.
Just a process concern, and it's great, thank you for volunteering, but we've had no discussion on this. It seems like we should have a discussion so that
Well,
we
we'll have the
can,
discussion
When
when
we come up with it.
but it seems like, Dave's going to go do a bunch of work with what he thinks.
It's not a big
and-
deal.
And then we're
It's
going to come.
It's probably a sentence. It's about prorating, if
Yeah,
you, yeah.
I know, but there's many ways to address, if we agree there's an issue to begin with.
There
which
there
I'm
is
not-
Well,
there is an issue.
Four of us agreed there was an issue at the meeting.
If you watch the tape of us, you probably saw the issue.
Four of us agreed. so I
Yeah, I know the issues he's raising. I don't know that it,
Nothing's been passed yet, so all I'm saying is let's work it,
We're
and
gonna
if we don't
we'll
like it,
discuss
we won't do it.
yeah, I was.
I mean, I think we got to come up with something for the residents.
Right.
Madam Chair, one question. We got a meeting on the 19th.
Yes, we do.
Is that it for November?
That's it for November because of Thanksgiving.
Town meeting.
And town meeting on the 12th, so maybe you'll be at town meeting.
No, I'll be at the meeting.
Thank you. Members' agenda inputs for future meetings beyond what we've already discussed.
You know what, Madam Chair, you do a pretty good job with the surprises. I think we got to just do what you do.
Public comment?
I got a public comment.
Go ahead.
As you know, I work for the Salvation Army Volunteer, and this November 13th, if you're a veteran or active duty military, we're having a celebration for all our veterans and active duty military people in Fort Devens at Devens Common Center. And it's a free meal, a free program. We encourage you to sign up, bring your family, and be honored as you deserve. If you are interested, it's on Facebook at the Salvation Army, or you can call 978-342-3300 and make your reservation there. So I hope to see all you guys there, and it's our way to go back and say thank you to you for your service.
Thank you for doing that, Dave, and all your service.
And you are welcome to come too, by the way. So if you want to bring a date, come on, and Sign up now, though.
So I'm glad you went there, because Phyllis got the,
Yeah.
got that information, and it wasn't clear, so, it's not just for veterans, so the
It's for
town-
veterans or people who supported us, and you have in the past, the Salvation Army.
Okay, all
But
right.
this is a veterans dinner, but we have
Yeah,
extra
I know,
people
that's what I
for,
thought. We want many veterans
it's
there.
the November, I want to say the 13th, November 13th. It's at 5 o'clock, and the doors open at 5. Dinner's from 5 to 7, 5:30 to 7:30 for a dinner and a program. And like I say, it's at Fort Devens at the Devens Common Center. Is that the hotel, the new hotel that opened up out there? Pretty sure it is. But it's a nice meal and a nice program after, and like I said, we want to honor all the veterans. So I hope you all out there listening who want to come, please sign up as soon as you can.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, Dave.
Any other public comment?
And happy Halloween.
Do I get somebody signing up?
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.